Let the chaos reign. Chaos Reign presents Can a Man Adjust to Relationships in the 21st Century? With special guest Dr. Blaque. Broadcast May the 23rd, 2021. This is going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, murder, rape, theft, and all forms of atrocities that plague the world in which we live in today, what you're witnessing, we're living in a state of chaos, and attain more greater or more extremer chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today. Good morning. It's not really afternoon, people. Today it's a morning stream. I am Chaos right here, Gary. And today's unique special broadcast just for y'all. Y'all gonna like this one. This is something a little different than I normally do. But before I go into the details of this morning's tea and coffee, wait, hold on a second, guys. I forgot to do this. I'd like everybody to go to talkrealsolutions.com. On talkrealsolutions.com, you'll find the 3-point plan for Black empowerment, Black achievement. Also on the website, y'all know there is a list of Black established-owned banks. And, you know, all the information that's given, even the latest articles and news, is all on the website on talkrealsolutions.com. And one moment, please. I forgot something. I can't forget this. 1 second, people. Also, as you know, you could find this particular stream on Talk Real Solutions on Facebook. Type in Talk Real Solutions on Facebook. Also, we're also streaming on YouTube. Talk Real Solutions on YouTube. Another page on YouTube. Hoping this one will last, but we'll see. And also, if you want to call in to this particular stream, the call number is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-POUND. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-POUND. And before I begin, I just want to send one little link to my cell. Hold on. Oh. Hold on. All right. Perfect. Go back to my app. All right. So, enough of that. Y'all heard enough from me. Now we can get into the broadcast at hand. And to make sure all my sound effects is silent. Oh, good. So now, the title for today's morning tea/stream. Can a man, or I should say, T.R.S. presents, can a man adjust to relationships in the 21st century? Boy, this is going to be very interesting. And today, my special guest I have with me, Dr. Blaque, will be the man. Me and him will discuss this matter at hand. So if you're there, Dr. Blaque, if you could press *61. Century. Oh, wait, this is. Oh, Tyrone, your mic is on, so you know. I can hear from you. All right, good. All right, I'd like to welcome, for the very first time here on T.R.S. Talk Real Solutions, Mr. or I should say, Dr. Blaque himself. Good morning, Dr. Blaque, aka Paco. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Well.
All right. I have to make a disclaimer. Dr. Blaque is a name. It's a stage name. I am not a doctor. For all the people who think they're smart and want to question my PhD, I don't have one.
Okay, excellent. All right, good. All right. Yes. Before we go into today's stream, Dr. Blaque, I'd like to take a moment in time, a step back in the past, hopefully going into the present we are and going forward in the future. So for the very first time, can you tell people a little bit about yourself?
All right. I'm from the Caribbean. I was born in the Caribbean, but I did all my education in school in the United States. Went to the United States as a young man, a young person actually, as a boy. After the high school, I joined the U.S. military. I served 8 years. I got out of the military, started working, and went to college at the same time. The reason I joined the military was to pay for college. I'm the last of 5 children to my parents, who are now married for 47 years. So at the time, my parents didn't have a lot of money to put me through school, so I had to find my own way. Plus, I was also a young parent. I had my daughter. I had my first daughter at 19 years old, and I wanted to provide for her. So I joined the military. I got out the military. I got a good job. I went to school because that was the whole point of the military. And when I got out, I wanted to travel. I'd always wanted to travel. The military took me a few places, but it didn't take me to enough places. So after, in my senior year of college, I got a job offer overseas, and I wanted to finish my degree, but I took the job because ultimately I always wanted to travel. And I came back home with a great idea to transition from my current profession into another profession, and I finished my degree in 2013. I got a degree in management, business management, aviation business management. And my wife and I, my only wife and I met her in my first job out of the military. She was married and was having a baby. I thought she was gorgeous, but she was obviously uninterested. I didn't know she was married. So she was married and she was uninterested. She actually was going through a divorce. And we went to school together. We graduated together. So it took me that whole time to going to school with her and getting to know her through school before she could take me seriously. And as we graduated together, we literally walked down the graduate across.
Okay. Excellent. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, let everybody know he's in another country, so he might cut in and out. So just be mindful. When you're done, Paco, let me know. So I know. I don't want to cut in. One thing as we continue on. Hold on. One thing why I kind of create and have this discussion, because as I'm looking at the data on black demographics, and it's only one of few main data. The CDC talks about more. I'm not sure it's update in regards to marital rate, not just a relationship with the marital rate of particularly black people in America, but since we're talking about men in general, but that the marital status from this demographic shows here that blacks and never married is roughly almost half. Blacks in total 30%. Separate, widow, divorce, nearly 12 to 6%. 6% is the widow aspect, and never married is 50%. Now, I believe this is across the board now that more than half of us are not getting married, which is logical. And in regards to the black men, since this was the census of 2019, which I expect this to be updated sometime this year or later in a couple months, that it says here now, since 2019, black men is 33%, separate divorce, 10%, widow, 3%. And as you all know, widow means that their wives normally die roughly at a range of 3% on the average. So it's not really high, very low, because we all know men will die more sooner than a woman. And when I look at it, I thought usually it was much higher, but when people talk about, say, marriage and death, that people are going to die alone, my thinking is that is a choice now in this climate we are now in the West we call America. But when we talk about widows, it's not that great with people that's, if you're married, that your mate, especially the opposite sex, is going to die at an alarming rate. It's a very tiny, minute percentage. So, but like I said, black men married 33%, separated. My fault. Separation 3%, divorce 10%, widow 3%, and never married nearly 52%. Very high. And with black women, it's 27% that are married, so it's slightly, a little bit more, still roughly 25%. Separate 4%. Divorce, we all know women initiate divorce. From this statistics, 13%. Widow, 8%. Yep. And never married, roughly, mostly, nearly half, 48%. And we're talking about all U.S. across the board, it's 48%. That's married. And never married, 34%. And as you know, in that middle, where we're talking about divorce, is 11%. So we look at us since 2019, since the census statistics, we're roughly almost the same as the population in regards to divorce, percentage-wise. So now let me look at Dr. Blaque still back. Let me check. Okay, he's muted himself, so. Did I mute him more? No, he muted himself. Okay. He's probably doing something, so. So let's be honest. A lot of men are complaining about getting the woman they want. And a lot of them can't get the woman they want. Trust me, I know the struggle. But nonetheless, you got to put yourself out there. Oh, okay. He dropped. Oh, no, he's back. Sorry, guys. All right, you back, Dr. Blaque? Hello?
Yes, sir. I'm back. I apologize.
Okay. I kind of talked. Well, let's continue. Cause I think you didn't hear most of what I said.
I heard it. I was trying to get familiar with your service here, so I apologize. I was listening, but I didn't enter the code quickly enough. So you were giving statistics on marriages and divorce in the Black community, correct?
Yeah, this is recently old statistics, and we know we now in 2021, as you know, so there should be an update now because we just passed the census of the 2010 era census. So right now there should be update data. Well, we'll know in a couple months or maybe next year with this website.
We'll know every year the year after. So we'll know 2020 this year, and we'll know 2021 and 2022. Like any statistic, it takes. They consider the whole year, and then the information is presented in the following year.
Excellent. All right. Good. Yeah, but you finished with your background. Are you done with the background?
Yes, I got cut off right as I was giving my background, but I was saying I wrote a book based on my experience and ideas that I have for dating. My belief is that we need to update dating. The concepts of dating are obsolete, and we need to update that, and that's what I aspire to do.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So as I see, that's where we stand right now in regards to our marital status. And I want people to know, in regards to relationships and people that's in relationships, I don't have the data on that. I don't think there is actual data. So I only go by marriage statistics, as everybody knows, because with relationships vary for every person, individual, to let people know. So you can't base who's in relationship with not by them doing a simple data of 1,000 or less, which that's normally most statistics go by. They don't go by roughly, let's say, 50 or 250,000 in research in regards they interview people and stuff. It's usually a small data sample size if you really look at how data and statistics work. So we're not going to know that, but we're going to base by who's married, who's not. You know, that's the only time we know who's in relationships and taking more beyond relationship and then marriage. So, but nonetheless, as we look at it, I say, Dr. Blaque, it is hard for a man, particularly black men out here, if we try to find a mate to once marry, have family, and carry on with life. As you know, the environment is so different now that. And one thing before I ask, you 80s or 70s baby, Paco?
I'm an 80s baby.
Okay, so we 1981. Okay. Oh, excellent. All right, so you fall on the same range like me a little bit. One thing I find interesting, because before we were almost adults around the 2000 era, that I've noticed we have things like Facebook, MySpace, the internet was just picking up. You get me? Around them times.
Yes, sir.
And depending on, we were fortunate. I mean, I mean, probably myself, I speak a little different from you, because you traveled out when you were adult. That usually back then, as a man, you had to go there, hunt, maybe go to club, go to events, interact, communicate with people, etc. Now, when we look at 10 years after the 2000 era, going on 2010, we notice, and I've noticed this by one particular, I think he's in the field of psychiatry or something. I forgot his name, but I had to upload dealing with social mental what they call social dis-ease, when he talks about the problems of technology and social media, the advent of it and the rise of it, what it will do to people in regards being sociable, being interactive. It's creating more of an antisocial behavior that just was on the infant stage over roughly 20 years ago. And we find it now that, okay, you saying something?
I totally agree. I agree. I'm just agreeing.
Okay,
with you. Yeah.
we find ourselves now that with a lot of black men that's probably our age or probably, were adults 10 years ago or roughly a decade ago, that a lot of men don't know how or are not really seeking how to interact with the opposite sex properly.
So this is, if you don't mind, this is exactly why I think my book is needed, and I think where I could be of use.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
One of the things I say in the conclusion of my book is there's no one solution. I am not some kind of mystical being that knows all, and a lot of people think when you have a well thought out concept that you are know-it-all. I try my best to not come across as a know-it-all, but I have to accept what people's opinions are. I respect their opinion. I don't think that the problem is that black men don't know how to connect with the opposite sex. I look at this as an opportunity. What the problem is that people in our generation are trying, like all generations before them, to do what has been done before. The problem with that is that the world is different than it's ever been before. If we look at I speak about this in my book, The History of Humanity. We've been around for 150,000 years at least. Some scientists say 200,000. Let's do 150,000 years. There's one consistent theme. The man is in charge. The woman is subservient to the man, and the man sets the parameters. And that has worked. That has worked pretty well. Something happened about 300 years ago where Europeans, at the end of the Age of Enlightenment, started considering what brings two people together in a relationship. Because prior to the European experience of the Enlightenment, because the Enlightenment wasn't global as they try to tell us, it was just for Europeans. They started to read in a higher level. Other cultures had already been doing that, and some countries hadn't started yet. But the Europeans, as they started to actually read and share their thoughts and philosophies, grew the philosophy that had been around for thousands of years in other countries like the Egyptians. The Europeans started to adopt it, and they started to think about, well, why do we come together? Because at the time, in the 13, 14, 1500s, marriage was about property.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage was about property. A man had property with his wife, and his children helped him to. It was an agrarian culture, right? So we farm, and your children help you to maintain the farm, and that's where your family's wealth was. Really, the wealth was in the land that the king owned, but your family gained some small portion of that wealth from working the king's land, and maybe even the rights to that land, the king or the lord or whatever, whoever was in charge of the land. And then you got to make your money from what you grew from the land, be it the crops, the fruit or whatever, or the livestock, so on. And then you had a wife, and the wife and children worked to assist you in maintaining that was your family's wealth. And then you hopefully had a son, and he would get a wife from a woman in the village who his mother agreed. And so they were all arranged marriages. And then after the Enlightenment era, people started saying, well, do we have to have arranged marriages? Arranged marriages are kind of boring. I mean, this person works. There's a healthy woman you give me a healthy man. We make healthy children. But that's so boring. And now that I can read and imagine things outside of my little village, I may want to experience some of those things outside of my village. And one of those things I can experience is other people and other ways to meet people and other ways to connect with people. So as people started to read and travel and imagine, arranged marriages became less entertaining. It became less, not entertaining, it became less appealing, because I could imagine a different spouse than a person who lived in my village altogether. I might be crazy and imagine an Asian person because I read about it in a book, even though I'm living in a European culture. I might imagine an African person because they came through before slavery. They were just someone visiting. And I can imagine having a relationship with this person, even though I'm in a European culture and I don't have any Africans. So then people started saying, with this concept of imagining my partner, and now we have something called romanticism, where I imagine this romantic experience. I'm a poor person. I'm a normal poor person, and I work in a field, and I do agrarian things. I imagine being a princess and having a prince come to me and save me and make me someone special. So now all of a sudden I'm Cinderella and I have a glass slipper and I'm a princess. That is what Romanticism did to the whole culture, especially the European culture, and those of us who are products of the European culture. Imagining something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that led to us getting away from these arranged marriages where we said, instead of having a family that is structured, that our parents who chose a good partner for us that will make, a duplicate more poor kids who go to school, not even go to school, right? Who just keep building the farm. Instead of that, why not imagine having a rich husband? Why not imagine having a gorgeous supermodel wife, even though supermodel didn't exist, but all these other things. And so instead of marrying for the arrangement just to keep going and being poor, I'll marry for love. Because if this person is so amazing, I'll love them and they'll love me back. And that is Romanticism. Romanticism is all of these concepts of how to get married for love, for emotional reasons. And our generation, the 80s babies, millennials, got that from our parents, who got that from their parents, and so on. But what did we discover? I think, based on my research and what I've looked at, I think the baby boomers stumbled upon something. The generation before the baby boomers are often called the Great Generation, the people who went to World War II. Some of them World War One. Okay, those people were starting to think about, well, this whole love thing, it wasn't so ideal, and maybe I'll just get a wife and eventually she'll love me. If you think about your granddad or your great granddad and grandmother's relationship, some of them read, some of them did it. A lot of them never graduated high school. If they did, they never went to college, and they just stuck together out of necessity. They gave themselves an opportunity to have open space, being living outside of their parents' home. They made a family and they stuck together. And no matter how granddad treated grandma had no skills to leave and to do anything different, so grandma stayed. And if granddad had babies outside the marriage, grandma stayed. But then the baby boomers, the children of that situation, said, wait a second, I don't necessarily want to stay married to someone who has children outside the relationship. The women, right? They started to get this women empowerment, and they started to consider women's rights, and they started to actually fight for women's rights. And women's rights from the 1920s joined with the civil rights movement in the 1960s and came to fruition in the 1970s with the Civil Rights Act. So women started to say, I don't have to do what my mother did, our grandmothers did. I can make different decisions. Society opened up space for women to think differently. And we, the millennials now, we are the first generation where women are born into the rights. Our mothers were not born into the rights. They gained them as they lived. And our grandmothers barely even thought of those women's rights. But our women today are born into women's rights. And so as a man, to me, it's something simple. We accept our partner as an equal. We seek an equal partner. And the premise of my book is saying, instead of marrying for love or having an arranged marriage, why not seek out your equal the same way a business seeks out its equal? Are you aware that Sprint and T-Mobile merged a year ago?
T-Mobile and what's the other company?
Sprint.
Well, I look at them as one conglomerate in the same chain pool anyways.
Sure.
So if they merge,
were you aware of, did you aware that they had actually business merger? Yes, they could be considered a conglomerate also, but they're a business merger. Did you see that?
No, I haven't noticed that. If it's something recent,
okay, so
go ahead.
It's a little bit over a year ago, but the point was that they did that. And I say to people, why didn't Sprint or T-Mobile merge with why didn't Sprint or T-Mobile merge with maybe Boost Mobile or Cricket or something like that?
Okay.
And there's a good reason why they didn't merge with those companies, because right now they didn't do that because those companies are inferior to them, and you can't merge with someone inferior with you. You have to have an equal partner in business, right? This is inherent. We understand this clearly.
Equally yoke. Equally yoke.
Equally yoke is the way we use it for romance. But I'm saying if we're looking at it from a business angle, you cannot merge with someone in a business that you're inferior. If you merge with someone who's inferior to you in a business, it's not called a merger. Now it's called a takeover.
Yes.
And you're going to have a superior company and an inferior company. And if you think about it, there are a lot of marriages in the past have had that setup where one party considers themselves superior, usually the man, and the woman is the inferior one. And that hasn't been working as women have gotten rights for the same reasons why T-Mobile didn't merge with Boost Mobile. Because when you have an inferior-superior situation, instead of an equal partnership, you're going to inherently have problems, especially if you can't technically take over. You can't technically force your superiority on your inferior partner. So if you can convince your partner that they are inferior, like our granddads did and our great-granddads did and our great-great-granddads did, that's fine. But the problem that the baby boomers have, and they are the generation who gave us the 50% divorce rate in America, where the women are saying, I don't have to consider myself inferior. I may want to be submissive, but I don't want to be inferior. And if you treat me as inferior, I'll find someone who doesn't, or I'll just be by myself. Now that women can afford to be by themselves, mm-hmm. We men of our generation, now we need to approach the situation with, I have to come at them as an equal. I have to approach them in a different way. We don't have to. We can still, and I say this because every woman's not trying to be an equal. Some women are uninterested. Some women appreciate being submissive to their man. Many, I'm sure millions of them do. But mm-hmm. in general, whether your woman wants to be a submissive or not, the idea, the concept is, we have to accept that women want a level that our mothers didn't want or wasn't ready to say that they wanted, and our grandmothers didn't even think of yet. And if we start with the premise, if we start with the idea that we are most likely to encounter a woman who will exercise her rights versus a woman who doesn't know her rights or doesn't even have rights, I think we could start on a better footing. Would you not agree?
In some way, yeah, you could say that. My thing is this, because how the climate, since, I guess women's liberations back in the 60s, which was created and established by a man, I want black men and men in general to understand that. It was other greats of men, mostly Caucasoid men, that made it possible. That the environment as we see fit, especially here in America, I can't speak outside America because, Paco, I have not traveled enough across every section in the world. But I know there is some form of patriarchy that still stands. That right now what the West is doing is a rubric, is a template that they want to expand for every mindset across the globe. Some countries are fighting it back. Some submit their will. But to let people know that we're now shifting. And like you said earlier, if we look at our own culture, especially African culture during the Egyptian time, there are many great kings and queens, if people didn't know. I have a book called The Great Woman of Antiquity that women did rule.
Yes.
And that book was written by Ivan Serma that I don't think is no longer in print because that man, if you're familiar with this scholar, he died 12 years ago. And when he died, most of his majority of his works were slowly being out of print, allegedly. And he dedicated a whole book on that to go through every history of the great black women or black queens of the time. And I'll say women ruled just as effective as men. But I want men to understand the difference back then and a little bit hard now is women still not only respect the femininity but respect the male principle. You get me? And that's where a lot of men.
What is the male principle? What does that mean?
I mean, at times when women ruled, it was a time where it was necessary, but they still have a way where they just don't do it where it said, I'm just going to dominate you. Because, women don't think in domination in a way. Like, I think, what's the name? The one from the Angola, Queen Nzinga, I remember. She was seeking out other male kings or something to help her push out the Portuguese at the time. So she knows she couldn't do it alone. You get me? She didn't think of this independence like a lot of dudes think about it. These women are going to get independence. They're going to think they don't need a man, which some have. But as a population of women entirely, they don't think like that. Like that, unfortunately. You get me? They still
No,
need
it's not unfortunate. I totally agree with you, but I don't think
yeah.
it's unfortunate. I'm glad that there are different kinds of
Mhm.
human beings, and we're not all one.
Mhm.
I don't know if you watch Star Trek, but I'm glad we're not all one warrior race of humans, just Klingons, just everything is
Yeah.
about, you know what I'm saying? So I'm happy that there are some people who
Mhm.
are into
Yeah.
dominating and doing things by force, and there's some people who are a little more diplomatic, and there's a large range in between. I do think it's a little. I don't think it's fair to say that the Angola Queen asked men to help as if other men don't do the same thing. All kingdoms who are
Mhm.
under duress ask for assistance from other kingdoms. They happen to be
Okay.
mostly men. That's fine. But I don't think she was doing it because they were men. I think she was doing it because she wanted to keep her power. Just like we helped the British in World War II, but I don't think we did it because they were the president was a man, because they had shortly had a woman after that. So I think we would have helped in World War II regardless of the gender of the leaders, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah. And the reason that's only one example for I can remember. I can't remember every other queen even back in ancient time till now because I have not read that whole entire book. I only remember only snippets of certain queens that did rule during I would say the fall of Egypt and throughout our history. And I say our history
Yeah.
because history is a global thing. I mean, people forgot to say that when we talk about world history, they like to X out our role in the history, and you cannot do that.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Yes.
want people to be clear that
Absolutely.
you cannot do that
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
every other nation, other race of people follow us and study us to understand how we able to dominate and rule for centuries and do it effectively. You get me?
Absolutely.
They take
Absolutely.
snippets. They take snippets and have their own for controlled domination.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, they gotta go through the originals, the originators of it,
Yeah.
and say
Of
how.
course they do. And
Yeah.
especially
Sorry.
because we did such a good job. It wasn't just they took it from the originals because they had no choice. They had better choices. No, they everyone remembers how well people do things. Right? We
Mhm.
always try to copy something that is a success. Hell, life, the meaning of life, how life works and evolution, how it works is the things that do well survive. Survival of the fittest is not just the strongest or the most powerful, but it's the thing that is the most adaptable. And so when you do something well, others will copy you. And so there's thousands, as you said, of years of experience and knowledge and success from the African cultures, from Egypt, Kush, and many more. Look at South Africa. Look at have you seen the movie Black Panther? I know it's a global hit, but have you personally seen the movie Black Panther, the Marvel movie?
Yes, everybody's seen, even me. I don't know how many times
Well,
I saw it.
I don't.
I
I
think
can't
one time I
assume that
saw it.
you watch
Yeah.
movies. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
assume. Just out of respect for you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
might
Yeah.
not be into those kind of movies. But so
Yeah. Okay.
when you watch Black Panther, I don't know if you know some of the cultures that was used to help create that. But the creator of the movie, the director of the movie, he specifically said, and I had assumed it by watching it because I work overseas and I've had a lot of South African friends and associates and so on. And I said to my wife when I watched the movie, I said, this had a lot to do with South Africa. She couldn't relate because she was just hearing me, but she didn't know. But later on, when I watched the director and he spoke about how the South Africans really had a huge influence on that movie, it was so obvious. It was so obvious. The accents by the characters were based after some more South African culture than others. And I had just watched I had just read Trevor Noah's book, and Trevor Noah's from South Africa, and just the Zulu and the power and the concept and the history of South Africa when we give it a chance before Europeans and we look at the value of it. It has so much to offer the world, and it probably has, even though people don't give it as much credit. And it was amazing that I was thinking that just as the Black Panther movie came out, back to your original point, that yes, we have to give credit to those who've been doing it, and the South Africans are one of my favorite African examples of quality for thousands of years.
Mm. Excellent. And let me give the call number for those that will tune in or listen in for the first time. The call number for this morning stream is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-pound. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 917-324-POUND. Today's stream is titled Chaos Reign Presents Can a Man Adjust to, or should I say, adjust to relationships in the 21st century? Now, I want people to know when I talk man, not just us black men talking, but just in general. And as we know, going into the details of things, if people want to understand that relationships are work. I just want to add that to people to understand.
Yes, they are.
And
yes,
one of the few things I've learned, if I, in a relationship or, seeking relationships, I always got to keep in the back in the mind that with anything I do, I have to put in the necessary work to make the opposite as happy and comfortable as possible. It will not be perfect, but I do what's best so that way I do my part. Now, one thing I've never heard much, and you hear this from a lot of men. Do you hear a lot of conversations say, how can we please and make the opposite sex a little bit more happy, or just enough comfortable? Have you heard it from what you've learned and experienced?
Sir, absolutely. It is constantly. That question is asked in every which way, directly, indirectly, roundabout, circular. That is a very important question, and that is to me one of the biggest problems. So, as I said, I joined the military at 19 years old because I was not only because I wanted to go to college, and also because I was having a baby. The absolute best mistake I ever made in my life. I love my daughter. She's amazing. She made my life better. She's a wonderful human being, and I'm a better person for being a father. So, both of my daughters, but my oldest daughter I'm speaking about specifically. So, people always talk about how to be happy. And one of the things you learn in the military, or at least I learned in the military, is that happiness is temporary. And if you measure your success in life based on how happy you are, you're going to be on this roller coaster, this emotional roller coaster that steals away your literal happiness. If you can't accept that the happiness will come and go, then you won't enjoy the happiness when it comes. It's the same thing as most human beings in general like sunshine. We like warmth of the sun. There was thousands and thousands of years and thousands of cultures who worship the sun. The sun is very important to us. But the people who imagine us if we thought that every time the sun went down that we all just were depressed, or we were feeling bad, or we couldn't sleep well at night because the sun wasn't up. Wouldn't that be a tragedy? Wouldn't we steal away if we couldn't sleep and at night and then be able to wake up the next day and enjoy the sun? We wouldn't enjoy the sun as much because of our attitude, right? So if we look at love the same way, if we look at love as something that needs to have a cycle, it needs to go and come. It can't just come and stay with us for happiness. It needs to go and come. It can't stay with us forever. It has to have a cycle so that we could appreciate it. Just like rain, we want rain to water our crops and to purify the earth and to clean us, but time. And we don't need it to be sunny all the time. We need that cycle. Well, I look at happiness the same way, and I learned from the military that I can be happy about my life even if I'm not happy at that moment. And I don't need that moment's lack of happiness to stop me from the greater happiness, to prevent me from the greater happiness. People say, stop and smell the roses, appreciate every day. Appreciating every day means that I can be happy that I'm alive. I can be happy that I'm working, I'm healthy, even if things at my job aren't going well today. Even if my boss is breathing down my neck, even if I feel like I'm going to not achieve this goal, this deadline for my company, I can still be happy that I'm able to face this struggle. And obviously the military, we face struggles inherently, right? Some of us face literal life and death struggles. And I'm not saying everyone else doesn't. I'm saying in the military, you have an enhanced opportunity to be productive in spite of your, maybe other professions don't make it so dire. But when you have someone's life in your hands, be it if you're a soldier who's actually fighting or all the thousands of people who support those soldiers, I can't be depressed. I used to work on airplanes. I can't be depressed because I'm working hard on this airplane that has a mission in a few hours and I feel like I'm not going to get there. I can't let the depression settle in because as an airplane mechanic, the pilot's life is in my hand. I have to be proud of all the pilots who have successfully flown this aircraft that I'm working on right now. And I have to have a determination that I will fix it even if I missed the window, I'm going to fix it the right way no matter what, because another pilot's hand will be in my life the moment life will be in my hands the moment that pilot gets into the aircraft. So we have to stop letting the temporary moment of lack of happiness poison all of the happiness, because happiness, like most things in life, are layered. I may not be happy this moment, but that doesn't mean happiness is over. And so when you're getting into a relationship, I recommend for men who are looking to keep their wife happy to eliminate that concept right there. One of the biggest things in my book, I said we have to have reasonable expectations. One of the reasons we fail in getting into relationships or keeping successful relationships is we have these unreasonable expectations. Romanticism gave us many of these unreasonable expectations. Romanticism told us that we're all princesses if we're women, or princes if we're men, and that the princess will find a princess or we will find a prince. That is an unreasonable expectation. There has never been an entire world of princes and princesses. That doesn't even make sense. The structure of that can't be, right? That literally can't exist. We cannot all be princesses, because the princess wouldn't have the materials to have a dress. She wouldn't have an audience to wear that dress to. She wouldn't have food to eat for that audience if everyone else was a princess. Who would do the work? The prince wouldn't have a horse, because who would breed the horses? Who would make the horse shoes? Who would give him some nice clothes to wear? So the idea that we're all princesses and princes and we're going to magically come together and make this live in this castle. Who's building the damn castle? Princesses and princes don't actually build anything. They need masons, right? Bricklayers. And they need other people to get the raw materials. Before you get to the mason, you need the straw, and you need to feed the animals that are going to. So the idea that we're all princesses, that was the initial unreasonable expectation that threw everybody off. So we want to love everything. We want to love forever, unreasonable expectation. And we want to be in love with this amazing person forever. Completely unreasonable. But what if we had reasonable expectations? What if we said, I'm going to be part of the process of my wife being happy, instead of making my wife always happy, which is unreasonable, and I'm going to guarantee myself failure if I set an unreasonable expectation. What if I say something more reasonable, like, as a man, my responsibility to my wife is to be part of her happiness, to be part of the process that gets her to her happiness. Because if, in all fairness, we can't make another human happy. We can make an environment where happiness is abundant, where as much as happiness goes, it comes even more. We can make an environment, right? But we can't literally make another person happy. It's not in our power to do so. Hell, most of the people don't have the ability to make their damn self happy. How are you going to make another person happy? And vice versa. What if you marry one of the most people who can't make themselves happy? How are you going to make a person who can't make himself happy? How are you going to make them happy? And why would you put that burden on your shoulders? You're setting yourself up for failure. And now you're depressed because you initiated this unreasonable expectation in your own mind, maybe even got it from your partner, and now you're both unhappy with something that you could have never succeeded at in the first place. Saying that I'm going to always make your partner happy, men need to learn this quickly without fail. Saying that you're going to always make your partner happy is equivalent to saying you're going to grow wings and fly to the countries that you're going to take your wife to. Not on an airplane, not a helicopter, but you're going to grow wings and carry her on your back. Those are the same thing. Those are equivalent. You're going to grow wings and carry your wife on your back, and you're going to keep her happy all the time. Put them all in the same basket. And I suggest that you grow the wings first, because that's going to be easier than keeping another human being happy all the time. You see what I'm saying? So my book is suggesting some basic principles to get us to stop thinking the way that failed our other generations. Our parents also failed at this. Our parents failed at making each other happy all the time. The funny thing is, they maybe didn't speak to us about it. And our grandparents absolutely failed at it. Our grandfathers didn't even consider that they should be making our grandmothers happy all the time. Okay. Because the woman didn't have in most cultures, the women were very submissive, or they were expected to be submissive, and they didn't speak about certain things. They kept certain things to themselves. And those of us who had a chance to speak with our grandmothers and to read books where grandmothers spoke about it, things after, the grandfather may have passed or so on, it's a very obvious thing if you look into it. Grandmothers they kept things quiet. They were there to hold up the husband and to polish the problems away. The problems were there, but it was their responsibility to polish them. Granddad set the path, and they were to follow behind him quietly. And that wasn't always a happy thing, but our grandmothers were raised by their mothers and grandmothers to polish the problems away, to put on a smile when they weren't happy, to accept granddad's anger and upset and blah, 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 even though it wasn't their fault. Okay, that was great 80 years ago, 100 years ago. But today, our women, the women that we will meet when we go out into the dating world, be it a millennial or what's the generation after us? Generation X,
either mid Gen Xer, millennial, and we can now throw in early Gen Z from 1995 to 2015 or 2017.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so and let's not leave this out. I already said earlier, the baby boomers are divorced at 50%, right? 50% rich. Okay, so and I don't know if you've seen this statistic, but the leading, one of the leading, not the leading. I don't think they're number one. I think they're one or two groups of people who are getting remarried in the 2010s to 2020s are baby boomers. People in their 60s are getting remarried. It's a big thing. It's a new big thing. People in their 60s. So that's not us. That's baby boomers. So the people who already failed in their first marriage are getting remarried in their second marriage in their 60s. So when they go out into the dating pool, they have to now talk to the women who probably have already been married, the remarriage. They're going to have to talk to them in a completely different way than they did 60 years ago when or 45 years ago when they initially got married. Those are totally different women. And so as men, think of it like a video game. When you're playing a game, you have to understand the purpose of the game, and you have to understand your abilities within that game. You will never succeed if both don't understand the purpose or your abilities. If you're playing Batman, you got to know what Batman can do in that game. You also got to know what the other characters can do, and you also got to know the purpose of what you need to do to win. That's the same thing with dating. If you don't know yourself as a man, you don't know the kind of women you're going to be dating as a man, and you don't even know what kind of women you want to date. How are you? What level of that is going to prepare you for success? There is no success there. There cannot be success there. You don't know yourself, which most people don't. You don't know the other person, which is obvious. You don't know them. You're getting to know them, and you don't know what you want from them when you do get to know them. Riddle me this, good sir. A Batman reference. What do you think most people get married for today? What do you think are common reasons that people in the 2010s to 20s, why are people getting married? You could pick any age range because some things are different, but let's say our generation. What do you think millennials who are getting married for the first time, why are they getting married for the first time? What do you think? Or what do you think is
getting married right now, or they got married almost
whenever they got married for their first marriage? Within the last 10 years, those who got married for the first time, what do you think is the primary reason?
Well, my thinking, what most men initiate marriage, because they're the ones that start, they said deal with relationships and eventually want a marriage is decided by a man, with the ring of significance. I would say men around, let's say, a millennial that get married in their 30s, most likely, of last decade, is they get and want to be married. One of two things: they want a longer term relationship and want to settle down. On average, they feel they're at a place either financially or emotionally. They want to be with or build a life with a woman to have his kids. I mean, I would say love, but love is kind of subjective to me. You get me? Because how men and women view love, Dr. Blaque, is different. Most women think that most men, they always verbalize their love. I'd say in some way they do, but usually as a man, from what I can only speak for myself, is usually I do more of the action part than just verbalize it verbatim, that I love you. If they want to hear it, that's fine, but I'm not the person that like to say things and not do it. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Many people, but especially men, I think, are like that. So that makes perfect sense. But what do you think is a primary reason, not for you personally, because you might have a unique reason, but what do you think our peers, you and I, what do you think one of the reasons, just any one reason that you think that they get married in this day and age?
All right.
Why do they decide to go ahead and walk down the aisle together?
All right. Hold on. Before I respond, I want to take 1 minute. Guys, stay around. Don't say nothing. 1 minute. So pause 1 second, guys. I just got to grab some. 1 second. All right. Okay. Well, let me see. What answer why people get married? I would say for love. That's the only thing I could give an answer, straight answer, to be fair, honest.
No, that's a good one. That's a very good answer. And that's not only a good answer, it's the answer that's the number one answer that people give. Now, that's what people say. But I've been doing research for this book, and my book isn't ready. I'm not a writer, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people who write relationship books are relationship counselors. So I'm neither a writer nor a relationship counselor, and I feel like I want to make a book. I want to write a book that's going to stand the test of time. That's going to be a quality book. And so what I think to myself, a way that I could compete with these professionals is to read their books, research their books, and then to get some help from a professional writer to make sure that when my book comes out that it's properly prepared. So I'm going to do more preparations for my book than maybe a person who's already in this space. And so I read two of my favorite relationship books I read is called The 5 Love Languages, a famous bestseller, and also Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, another famous bestseller relationship book. I learned a lot from those books. But excuse me, the air here is kind of thick and it makes me choke up a little bit. But a lot of people say that they get married for love. Okay. The problem with the people who say they get married for love is that they don't have that same love. They don't claim that they have that same love when they get divorced. So we hear what they say when they're getting married, but when they get divorced, the reason that they get divorced are money, infidelity, and other things other than love. So the question is, what happened to the love? Is love the better question? Not just what happened to the love. Is love something that we should be getting married for? Is love something that we should be getting married for? Now, in my book, I recommend that love is not a reason that you should get married. Love is like the sun. Love is like the sun, or excuse me, love is like daytime. And I don't even want to say it's like daytime. It's like daytime in the highest northern hemisphere, where daytime is very short. Because if you think about it, love is more like a tide, and you're on the beach, and the tide comes in, and it has to go out. It can't just come in. Remember, I was speaking earlier about being happy. Well, love is another emotion like happiness, and it can't last forever. No emotion should last forever. And think about this: you don't want any emotion to last forever. Let's do a thought experiment real quick. Imagine your favorite dish. What is your favorite meal to eat? What is your favorite thing that you've ever eaten that you just love to eat anytime?
Oh, damn. That's
you might have many, but pick one. Pick one. Come on. We're going to have a discussion.
Well, my favorite
I'm not going to just...
Yeah. Well, my favorite dish, I would say, on the average, what I like to eat is probably rice and some chicken. With some nice vegetables, mostly steamed vegetables. Yeah, go ahead.
Pick a high class favorite dish, something that's not easy to come by, something that is not only your favorite, but is let's say it's kind of pricey, expensive, something that you just can't eat, that you can't have access to every single day. Do you have anything that's kind of upscale? A favorite dish that's very upscale? Do you have anything like that?
Well,
maybe expensive?
If we're dealing with dish, I would say mostly fish. Like either salmon or regular, regular fish. Like try to name some fish because I'm not really familiar with every fish. We could say
your favorite. You got to pick. Let's do salmon.
Well, I would say salmon for now because that's a high dish. Go ahead.
Let's say a salmon. They call it salmon steak, right? Let's say the salmon steak
Yes,
You
correct.
have that thick cut salmon, the really expensive one. Let's say you go to an expensive restaurant and you get your salmon steak that costs $100 just for the salmon, and that's not even the size and stuff. And imagine for that there's a romanticism. We'll use a fairy godmother who made everything you ate taste like your favorite dish. So everything you ate after you ate the salmon, everything tastes like your favorite dish. It tastes like the perfect salmon. So the next day you wake up, you eat cereal, it tastes like that salmon. The next day you go to lunch and you have soup and salad, it all tastes like that same salmon. You have dinner, it tastes like salmon, which is fine, but your dessert tastes like salmon. So your carrot cake now tastes like salmon. Imagine if everything tasted like salmon. You drink some water, it tastes like salmon. You drink beer, it tastes like salmon. You drink wine, it tastes like salmon. Imagine if everything tasted like your favorite salmon. How long would it take before you stop liking that salmon? How long would it take before that's no longer your favorite thing to eat? How long would it take before you are sick and tired of salmon? What do you think?
Okay, that's a very good question. Well, if I have it, let's say once or twice a week, after a while, depending if it's done or cooked correctly and stuff, I can be bored and won't like to eat it for a while. It can get boring, and sometimes my taste buds will have to
Absolutely.
adjust. Mhm.
That's right. And that's if you had it once or twice a week. Imagine if everything you ate after eating your favorite, remember the favorite godmother made everything. Your tongue now tastes salmon the whole time. You would get sick of that after less than a day. It wouldn't take you probably more than a day. Maybe if it was something sweet, you might get sick of it after 2 days. But the average person would get sick and tired of everything tasting the same. Because that's not how humans are. We don't want everything the same. Yet, we get into this romanticism and says, yes, boom, I want love all day, every day. I want to be in love. I want to be in cloud nine. I want to be looking in her eyes and singing. The birds are singing, the sun is shining. Love, 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 love. I don't ever want to feel anything but this love euphoria. And it's not true. It's not true. What we're asking for isn't even true. We're not even being honest with ourselves. We don't want to be in a constant state of love. We want to feel the other emotions. We want to feel sad. We want to feel joy. We want to feel tearful. We want to feel compassion. We want to feel anger. No one wants to say, I'm giving up anger forever for love. It doesn't make sense. So why do we set out into our romantic relationships as men or women, but we're going to speak for ourselves before we speak for others. As men, why would we set out for a romantic relationship to even suggest something so ridiculous as I want to constantly be in love? Now, some men might say, well, that's what women say, but we follow them too. We agree with them if for nothing else and say, yeah, I want to constantly be in love too. I'm about to marry this girl. I never want to stop loving her, right? But we don't really mean we want to love her all the time. And that's part of the problem. Romanticism lied to us, told us that we're all princes and princesses, and that we're going to constantly be in love forever all the time. It's unrealistic and it's absurd. We don't actually even want that. No more than we want to taste salmon every time we have Captain Crunch in the morning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
So my book is trying to say let's adjust the concepts of love and marriage and how to get into a marriage are obsolete. What our grandparents did, what our great-grandparents did, what our parents, some of us did, who are part of the baby boomers who have 50% divorce, that didn't even work for them. Any test in the world, if you only pass 50% of the time, you fail. So clearly, there isn't a culture out there who really has how to maintain marriage by the standards that they set. I'll tell you about some other cultures around the world. If you go to many of these predominantly Muslim cultures, the Kenyans and the Sudanese and the Saudi Arabians and the Gulf states and the Indonesians in Asia, if you go to them, the women have little to no rights, especially when it comes to marriage. In those cultures, if you're a Muslim, the husband can have 4 wives, the women can only have 1 husband, and in many of the cultures, Islam is the not only the religion but also the government structure where people have this term Sharia law. Sharia law isn't exactly set, but the concept of Sharia law, where the laws come from the Quran and Hadith, okay, if you go to those cultures, the woman has to, by law, always have a male guardian. So you're a girl, From a baby until you're married, your father is your everything. You can't get a driver's license. You can't sign up for school. You can't get a bank account. You can't put your name on your job application without his name. In the cultures, the Muslim cultures that have this structure. And then once you're married, your husband takes over and does all of those things. So you're never an autonomous person. You're always beholden to a man. In those cultures, the divorce rate is low. But the reason the divorce rate is low is because the women don't have a choice. Oddly enough, the man has a choice. He can divorce any of his 4 wives. All the cultures don't have 4 wives rule, but in general, they usually, if you're a true Islamic government, you can have up to 4 wives. Women can't, and the women can't divorce their husband freely. The husband has to agree to it, and she has to go back to her father if she gets divorced from her husband, because she has to be beholden to a man. So those cultures say, you Americans, you all get divorced. Well, their system isn't much better. Now, some people think it is, but if we look at it objectively, you can't take credit for having a low divorce rate when you tell 52% of the population that their opinion on being divorced is irrelevant. It's null and void, because women are more of the population than men. So of course you have a low divorce rate. You're literally cheating if you take away half the population, the bigger part of the population's vote, right? We have more divorces in America because women have a say-so. Now, right, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, when people were super Catholic and they were super Protestant and they weren't getting divorced, our grandparents didn't get divorced at high rates, even if grandpa had another family on the other side of town, because the church told them, hey, we just don't do divorces. Like, you'll be shunned. You'll be a horrible Catholic if you get divorced. You'll be a horrible, Baptist if you get divorced. So our grandmothers didn't want to be shunned. They didn't want to, put their spirituality on display as failing in it. So they stayed. But today, people have learned that you can't trick them with that, right? You can't fool them into staying married like you used to. And so they're taking choices. They're taking options that they have. And every culture that you give them the option, people will exercise their options, as they should. Yet another lesson that we should learn as men: if we're going into this dating game today, where women also get a vote on if they stay married to you, should we not spend more time ensuring that we marry the kind of woman who would want to be with us, who would want to stay with us, who has a long-term view of marriage? If you marry someone in Vegas who you've known for 2 weeks, how can you ensure that they have a long-term view of marriage? Matter of fact, I would dare say that they absolutely don't have a long-term view of marriage if they married you after 2 weeks in Vegas, right? So if you get divorced after 2 years, no harm, no foul. You got exactly what you should have expected. If you get an annulment after 45 days, of course you did. She married you after knowing you for 2 weeks in Vegas. Your wedding ceremony was 22 minutes. It was a drive-through. I mean, what did you expect? So expectations, reasonable expectations, is one of the foundational parts of my book. And it has to be for all of us getting into the dating game. For us black men who want to find a wife, we have to have reasonable expectations based on the culture that we're in. Not on our mothers, not on our grandmothers, not on our fathers, not on our grandfathers, but who we're dating today. If you're heterosexual or homosexual, it's the exact same concept. You have to consider the people you're trying to marry, not who you like from your past, not a fairy tale or not even a fantasy of your family's relationships. And it all starts with 2 most important words: personal responsibility. I was thinking self-respect, but that's later on. Personal responsibility. Okay. You have to start with personal responsibility. You have to know yourself first. Then you can know what you want from a partner. Then you could seek the partner that you want. You cannot seek the partner that you want before you know yourself, because the you want part is important. You can meet a gorgeous woman that doesn't know how to cook, that makes a lot of money, and then find out that you love to eat and you love to be cooked for, and try to marry her and be mad at her for not cooking. It's not her fault, it's your fault. Personal responsibility. You can meet an average looking woman who cooks her tail off, not really interested in working outside the home. Marry her and resent her because she doesn't make money. That's not her fault. That's your fault. You have to know yourself, especially as a man, if you're going to claim to be the leader. Now, if you're a man who's not interested in being a leader, it doesn't really matter. Personal responsibility out the window, you're looking for someone to lead you. But if you're a common man, most men claim to be the leader of their life and of their home. If you're the leader of your home, if you're a man and you don't know what you want first, you failed already. It's the exact same like you would do in a business. If you're the CEO, and I say in my book, you're the CEO of your own life. If you're a CEO, it is not anyone else's responsibility to set the course of your business. It is your responsibility all the time, every time. You're not only set the course of your business, but you're the final say on the course of your business. So if your business is succeeding, it's your responsibility. You can take credit for that. If your business is failing, it's doubly your responsibility, and fixing that failure starts and ends with you. Now, this also goes for women, because today's woman has more autonomy. Now, if you want to be a woman who is submissive, you may say, I'm the CEO of my life, but I want to hire a CEO to run my life. So my husband will take over as CEO, like many companies do. And hell, if you're a man, you could even try it. But I don't encourage people to have someone run their life. I encourage people to have personal responsibility, establish themselves as a quality business, as a quality CEO, then do like Sprint and T-Mobile, merge with another quality company based on, like you said, being equally yoked, or based on having similar goals in life. Notice I have not said anything about love, because love
you did
temporary. Not. That's very important. That is the ultimate perspective that I'm changing from. Can I tell you a story about my rehearsal dinner at my wedding?
Before you do you hear any background noise before I ask this?
No, only maybe you adjusting your mic, but I don't hear any background noise.
Okay, good, excellent. Yes, proceed. Tell your story.
So, in reference to what we're talking about, love, I'm trying to pivot away from love, right? Because I think because love is temporary, we should try to find some foundational things that are more permanent than love to be married for. And so my book's premise is to use principles that we know that work already in business, right? For example, we all know business principles because we all have jobs or a career, or we had a job at some point. So we're all very familiar, whether we're dating or married or not, we're all familiar with business principles. I'm saying take the business principles that we can and overlap them into our romantic relationships. I'll tell you why later, but that's the premise of my book. My book is called The Business of Love. And I'm saying take business principles and use them in your romance and overlap them, because we already know business principles work. So at my rehearsal dinner, at my wedding, the day before my wedding, my whole family was there, and all the guests who were going to be in the wedding were there. And we're introducing ourselves because I just got to meet my wife's father, and California to meet him. And of course, I asked his permission, but some other family members and so on. And so I said at the rehearsal dinner, I said, I'm not marrying my wife for love. And my wife, though she is not white, might have been pale at that moment. That was not a favorable comment to her at that time. I went on to say all of the great things about my wife that have nothing to do with love. I knew her from the moment I saw her. I was in awe of her. I thought she was gorgeous. I thought she was very attractive. She might have been the first woman I ever saw pregnant that I thought was beautiful. Once again, she was going through a divorce, so we didn't date at that time, but I was still in awe of her. We went to college together. I saw my wife's work ethic. Many people go to college, they don't graduate. I got to witness live. At the time, I got to witness my wife go through classes. We shared many classes. I got to get to know her as a friend. I see her now working. I see her as a professional. I saw her as a professional before because when I met her, she was active duty in the military, and then I saw her after that, after college, as a professional. I got to see her potential, and so I didn't love her to appreciate her greatness because I had so many other things to appreciate, and I married her for the other things because I didn't love her at first. I got to know her to love her, and I didn't need to love her to see her greatness. She has great features. And I told the audience that that's the reason I was marrying her. for the things that I saw her do very well that could add to my life, and for the things that I'm sure that she has the potential to reach based on all of the work that I've seen her do and all of the foundational things that I saw, all the actual tangible things that I saw her do. Those were the reason why I thought she was a good mate for me. I'm the kind of person who wants to earn a high income and maintain a high income lifestyle, and my wife has the same concept. It would have been very difficult to marry someone of an opposite concept. And a lot of people do this. A lot of wealthy men marry women who don't have wealth, who don't even have a concept of wealth, who don't care about building wealth. Many of those men in the baby boomer generation have been divorced and been remarried multiple times, even Bill Gates himself. Think about it, right? How many, 3 or 4 out of the richest men in the world have already been divorced, right? So
Yes.
they tried to marry these women for love. They tried to marry them because they looked nice, or they just had them on their arm, or they were immutable to being subservient. And then 30, 40, 60 years later, they're no longer in love for some reason. What a surprise. They're not in love. What if they had done like I've done? What if they married women who were building with them the whole time? You know what helps to bring your love back quicker? When you have other things in common. And so I was saying to the audience that my wife and I have so many things in common. She was my best friend at this time that I was at the rehearsal dinner. We had been dating for years. I knew what kind of person she was, for the good and the bad, and she knew what kind of person I was because she observed me without dating me. She knew me for the good and the bad, and she still was interested in me. That it has nothing to do with love. That has to do with each person's logical brain when you could evaluate someone else. Just like your boss does at work, he evaluates you, whether he likes you or not. He has to do a professional evaluation. When you're dating, you're supposed to be doing the same professional evaluation of your partner. But what do people talk about? How much they're in love. Well, love is a cop-out because there's work, like you just said. Every relationship is work. There's work to be done in romance. It cannot begin and end with love because no matter how much you love a person, none of that's going to put food on your table. None of that's going to keep the lights on. None of that's going to get you to and from the places you need to be. So I'm suggesting that we focus more on the tangible aspects of life, of being a partner, as a CEO of our own life, finding another person who's a CEO of their life, and trying to merge these tangible things instead of trying to merge this metaphysical thing called love that cannot be permanent. If you and I are having a business, we're in a business, we're running a company together, that work that we do is permanent. That work that we do can be permanent. It's tangible. We're doing it. And if we love each other on Tuesday and maybe on Thursday we're not in love, we're still working our business. We still have something tangible, a goal that we're tangibly working on. And that will help to bring us back to loving each other by Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And any days that we're not in love, we're working together. And we're not working just together. We're working towards a goal. Right? So I said that at my wedding rehearsal, and a few of my family members got it. My wife was appalled or a little bit hurt. I won't say appalled. Her feelings were hurt because, like any other person, she was taught that you have to be married for love, even though it didn't work because, unfortunately, my wife had been married and divorced at this time. So she tried to do the love thing already. It didn't work. But my wife recently admitted to me that she understands now better what I was trying to say than at the time that I said it. She was hurt about it at first. But now that we're living the example that I've been trying to set, and we're trying to do the things that I suggest that we do, and they're, most important, they're working for us, right? We can all talk, but the people who listen are the people who find what we say to work. Now that it's working for my wife, she says, I understand now what you mean about being in love. Because you're a human, husband, and I don't love you every day. You get on my nerves sometimes. You say hurtful things sometimes. I miss you because you're overseas and you're not there to comfort me sometimes. I don't feel love when I'm feeling like I'm missing you. I may feel it shortly after when I refocus, but at the moment, I may just be feeling sorrow. I may be feeling like I'm missing you. But no matter what my emotional state may be at that moment, we're working on something. I just bought my wife, after spending an entire year in overseas. I was stuck overseas working because of COVID. I couldn't go home. Many people who work overseas get a vacation and they go home. But because of COVID, a lot of people in 2020 were unable to go home. So I went home after 368 days. I was unable to see my wife for an entire year, my family, everyone, for a whole year, more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got home, I purchased for my wife a surprise. We went to Atlanta for vacation with the girls. So I have two daughters. We went to Atlanta, and I purchased my wife a brand new Porsche Cayenne because a few years earlier she told me that Porsche Cayenne was her dream car. And so in 2017, I purchased her a Porsche Cayenne after coming home from the first job. And she was completely surprised. I didn't tell her no warning, no nothing. I just traded my car in for her car. I didn't need a car if I'm working overseas anyway. And so she got her first Cayenne in 2011. Then this 2020, so that was in 2017, she got a 2011 model. This 2020, I took her, after being gone for a long time, over a year, I bought her a new 2017, gently used, not brand new, gently used. And once again, I surprised her with a new Cayenne. And then I took the girls around Atlanta. And then 2 months later, I just closed on a brand new house for my wife and I, for the girls.
Okay.
And we were renting a house, one of our homes, but I bought her a new home. And so my wife doesn't have to think about only loving me. She doesn't have to think about how much she loves me. She doesn't have to settle for just loving me. The time that she's not in love with me, the time I might hurt her feelings, the time that I may do something that upsets her, the time that she's just not feeling it, she's still driving in her dream car. And she still comes home to a house that she never expected, that she never planned for, that she constantly tells me, I love this house, I love this house. And now because of COVID, she's working from home, and she has a whole office to herself compared to trying to, let's say some people have to work out of the kitchen from home because they didn't plan on it and they didn't have enough space and da-da-da. But my wife has all the space that she needs. And so she can be a professional in her home the way she likes, design it the way she likes. And all these things have nothing to do with love. And so if a man says to me, how do I help to keep my wife happy? First thing I tell them, like I said already, you can't make another person happy. But if you create an environment where happiness can constantly come there, that's the way I recommend. Make an environment to grow happiness. And so what I've done is I've given my wife things that she's dreamed of, the home that she dreamed of, the car that she's dreamed of, the office that she's dreamed of. It's not mine, it's hers, right? But it's in an environment where she can constantly find that emotional joy, that emotional happiness, and to the levels where we call it love. And when she thinks about how she got to that space, she directs that love to me because I am a direct line to those things that make her happiness, the things that make her feel joy, the things that make her feel love, even when I'm overseas and I'm not physically touching her. And I don't think I'm doing something unique or unreal or that other people can't duplicate. I imagine if people thought about it, we can all, no matter how much money you have, create an environment that love can grow. We can all do that, no matter how much money we make, no matter how much money our partner makes. The key is we have to know ourselves, and then we have to take time to learn our partner. Once we learn what makes our partner happy, what makes her tick, what makes her feel joy, we present it to her in the way that works for her. And I learned that from that book. I learned some of that from the book, The 5 Love Languages. The 5 Love Languages, for those who don't know, speaks about how people receive love. We all have a love tank, and we want to fill the love tank. Life drains the love tank, but a partner can help us fill it back up. And they can fill it up by understanding what goes into the love tank that makes it fill. So some people like to have words of affirmation. Some people like to have gifts. Some people like to have quality time. Whatever those different love languages, it's the responsibility of the partner to learn their partner's, S, apostrophe S, love language. When you learn it, you take action on it. If your wife needs quality time and your husband, it is your responsibility to spend quality time with her, not for you, for her, in the way that she wants it. If she wants to watch romantic movies, if she wants to read certain books, if she wants to go for walks, that's your job. How do you keep her happy? You make an environment where she knows that you are going to provide her love in the language that she understands. In this example, it's quality time. And I do that for my wife. My wife's love language is words of affirmation. So I constantly have to say beautiful things to her, and I'm very happy to do so. I think she's beautiful, and I work at those things. My love language is not in the book. I actually created one based on the book. My love language is gift giving. The book says gift receiving, but mine is gift giving. So I've combined my wife's love language with my own love language, and so I always give her words of affirmation. I also buy her random gifts. So she knows that I love her based on what I'm doing, and she knows that I love her in the way that she wants, because I constantly reiterate her love language. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. To stop you for this is excellent. Right. Well detailed. And I learned a lot on Paco. I don't think I heard of some pretty other podcasts or streams you were in with other particular content creators. I think this is the most that you lay out hows and methods. This is really good. Excellent.
I really appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Let me give the call number again. The call number for today's stream is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324#. Today's stream is titled Chaos Reign presents Can a Man Adjust to the to Relationships in the 21st Century, with special guest Dr. Blaque. Now, I have a person that raised his hand and wants to chime in or ask questions to what he has heard so far. Are you ready, Paco?
I'm absolutely ready.
All right, caller, open your line. May I ask who I'm speaking to?
This is a Mary Brown.
Okay, what's good, Mary? Oh, the Great Liberator is here. What's good, Mary? What's good?
What's good? Well, first I just have a I don't know, maybe a question and a comment. My first question would be, what particular field of expertise does the guest have as to what he feels makes his views on marriage authoritative?
All right. I'd like to answer that by saying I do not feel that my views on marriage are authoritative. I think that anyone who suggests that their views on something that is not tangible is authoritative is already making a mistake. I mean, who is an authority on metaphysics? Love is the number one metaphysic, right? It's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's not tangible, it's outside of anything. We call a feeling that we choose to call a certain feeling love, and each person can call their own version of their feelings love. So how could a person have an authority on something metaphysical? I don't know, and I don't think anyone has that kind of authority, and I wouldn't recognize anybody's authority on something like that. Now, for marriage, I'm having a successful marriage, and I'm recommending things that I use that work for me for other people. I'm not ordering it. I'm not demanding it. It's not a dictate or an edict. It's a recommendation for anyone who's interested in listening to what works for me, just like most people do, right? Any successful person will make recommendations on how they got successful. Maybe you use it, maybe you don't. It's up to you.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so the next thing is, because I heard you mention that that love is temporary, right? And you approach the marriage dynamic as a business, and you just mentioned that you were having a successful marriage, and congratulations on that. I like to hear that. And I heard you mention other things that all centered around material, like material goods, creating an environment where happiness can thrive, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with that in part. But the thing about it is, how is love temporary and those things, those material goods and services and things aren't? I think it's setting people up for failure if we prioritize things, possessions above people, above the people in our lives. I think when you look at marriage, I think we forget, because I come from a different aspect, vantage point, that marriage is very much about love. It's very much about love. Now, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about familial love. This is what you build a family on, right? And so I always bring it to the children. It's a reason why, you hear this term called love child. There's a very different psychological state of parents and children who were born out of a love connection, as opposed to, if you want to call them oops children, or children that were had by accident, or children that were had from adulterous affairs and these different types of things. And personally, I think when you're looking at the black community or black society, I think that's part of the problems that we have, is that you have a lot of children who are being born to just these casual sexual liaisons, and there isn't a love component there. You see, like that's the way I look at it. I'd like to get the guest thoughts on that.
So you said a few things, sir, and I'll try to remember all of them and address them. Initially, I would like to say that there is a famous quote that says, "Many have lived without love, but none have lived without water." I think it's a Victorian era quote. And the point of that quote is to say that you can love or not love. That is not a requirement for life. The requirements for life are very tangible things. You have to eat. You have to interact with some other beings that are going to support your protect you in life. And for your sanity, you have to find a purpose. So the idea that family is that to have a family you require love. This is romanticism at its finest. It's focusing us on something that is not just temporary. Obviously, everything is temporary to an extent, right? Even the universe hasn't been around forever, and our planet itself hasn't been around forever, and much less people, right? Things are temporary. But what I mean is, love is a cycle. And you have to expect the going out cycle. You expect the tide to go out just as you expect it to come in. You can't expect the tide to only come in. You can't expect to stay in love or in the feeling of love constantly. It has to go in and out. It has to rotate. It has to move. Okay. And so while you're in and out of love, and it's not just love, but it's while you're in and out of the emotional connection of love, or you're in and out of the mood of love, there's still things that you have to do. And so my suggestion is that we focus more on the things that you have to do versus the thing that you want to do, which is constantly being loved. And let's talk about the children. You mentioned the children, the oops children, and maybe children that come from adultery. Whether a child is an accident, whether a child is from adultery, whether a child is unplanned, whether a child is an adopted child, all of the children in that example and any example need the same things. And they all don't need love. They all are better with love, but they don't need love. Love, in my book, I suggest that love is the icing. It's not the cake. What children need is protection. They need that. You're right. If we leave them to the elements, they'll just die. They need protection. They need sustenance. And they need to be taught how to exist in this world. Love is not a requirement. Love is an icing. It's not the cake. And so I think that we should focus on the cake. I'm not saying that we should live without love. I'm not saying that love isn't important. I'm saying that we need to look at love and put it in its proper perspective. Love is a seasoning. It's not the entree.
So let me ask you this.
So, okay.
Well, let me briefly interrupt.
No.
Please, because here's where I'm kind of getting hung up with what you're saying. I understand that. The first thing is where we're presenting it as this false binary option, as if we can't do both, right? And that's the reason why I mentioned the children, because how do we quantify love? You mentioned love as a metaphysical, immaterial thing, something that exists in the abstract, something that isn't concrete. But I would argue that love is concrete, because that's how we quantify it. So, for example, when you look at men who go out and risk life and limb to provide for their families, you can't tell me that those men aren't doing that because they don't love their wife and their children.
I wouldn't tell you that.
That's exactly
I'm telling you that I'm telling you that men do it for love, and they also do it without love. I'm not saying that it's not a binary choice. I'm saying that those people who look at love as the number one thing, that's your choice to rank it as number one or to hold it in highest esteem, but it's not a requirement. I'm saying there's other ways to look at it. I'm suggesting in my book a different point of view, a different perspective. You can go out and risk life and limb for your family out of love. You can also go out like a soldier does and risk life and limb for your country out of patriotism, out of a sense of responsibility. You don't have to love a country. I served in the U.S. military, and I was not born in the United States. I didn't serve any less. I didn't perform any less. And I don't have any less honors based on how much I love the United States. In World War I and II, the first African Americans to fly in planes were for the French, and they were African American. They didn't love America less. They had a responsibility, and they took opportunities somewhere else. They didn't serve in France less because they were from America. So my point is that I'm not suggesting it's two options. I'm suggesting it's at least two options where traditionally the people who speak about love suggest that that's the only option. I'm trying to share with other people that there are other options that they may consider. They don't have to accept it. Once again, it's not an edict or a rule or written in blood and stone. This is my recommendation. This is my perspective, something that's working for me. And I like to say that the reason we've come to this is because love has been failing our society for 400, 500, 600 years. All this love, like I said, has led us to 50% divorce rate. When you get to 50% of something at failure,
but most divorces are initiated because of financial reasons, not because
that's
you
true.
What I'm saying?
That's the reason it's initiated. That's not number one anymore. It may be, but if you love someone and money doesn't matter, then they'd get over it. It's not.
I never said it. I never said provisions.
I know you're not. I'm not accusing you of anything, sir. I'm saying popular responses when I read the books by these experts who talk about their counseling with their clients. They have discussions. Anyone who's looked into relationship books know this. You and I could just be watching television. We can listen to the pop stars and the movie stars and the singers and the athletes and so on and talk about the reasons their relationships ended. It's a very common theme for a person to say that I'm getting divorced over money, but the love isn't there. And so to me, you can't say love is permanent, but when you're getting divorced, it's not there. We all have to admit, be honest with ourselves and say that when the parties are getting divorced, the parties themselves say, from their own mouth say that the love isn't there. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, that's what the people say when they're getting divorced. The love is no longer there. So if the love is not there when you're getting divorced, that was there when you're getting married, it's obviously not permanent. Can we at least agree on that, sir?
I'm sorry, say that again?
If the love is not there when you're getting divorced, but it was there when you were getting married, it's obvious that love is not permanent.
I would make the argument that it wasn't really love.
Agree on that.
Well,
how can you
make the argument?
You can't tell another person. I would make the argument that a man. One second. Just like I can't say whether a man is going out to fight for his family for love or not. You say a man is risking life and limb for love. I can't argue that. Then you can't argue a person who says of their own volition, from their perspective, which is the only perspective that matters, that the love isn't there, but it was real. We can't discuss it in a way that's not objective. You can't give love credit when it works, but forget about it when it fails. I'm speaking for people who say it themselves. I'm not speaking for the people. I'm quoting the people. When they're getting divorced, they're not in love anymore. When they were getting married, they were in love. We can't judge the love. Whatever it was, it's their opinion. That's all that matters.
Right. Is
that reasonable?
I mean, I think, like I said, there's I look at it like there's a lot of, misconceptions out there in this day and age, and I don't think as a society, particularly in Western society, that we understand what love is. I think most people who say, "Well, I'm just not in love anymore," or they're talking about what you're talking about, which you mentioned the emotional, like as an emotion, but I don't look at love as an emotion. I think love is much more of a principled thing than anything else. That's why I mentioned men who go out and will engage in these dangerous jobs to make sure they're able to provide for their family. That's a principled thing. That's not, you see what I'm saying? It's not emotional, because there's going to be times when you don't feel like doing it. You see what I'm saying? Or when you don't feel like you love this person, but he's still doing what he's supposed to do, or going into these dangerous situations, putting yourself at a disadvantage to provide. You see what I'm saying? So I look at that as a principle thing. That's just my views on it. No need to go back and forth about it.
I appreciate your views, and I don't think you're wrong. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. I'm not even disagreeing with you.
Right.
I'm just adding, once again, that there's another way to look at it. I am one of the men who are currently in one of the 3 war zones of the world, working away from my family. Right now, on this call with you, I'm calling from overseas, and I'm sharing this conversation with you. And I'm doing it because I love my family. But that doesn't mean that every man here is doing it for that reason, even if they have a family that they claim to love. And I'm saying, whether I love my family or not, the love isn't the most important thing. What's most important is that I'm committed to their success. Because they're men who claim to love their family. Not men, I'm not going to just do this. They're people who claim to love their family just as much as I love mine, and I can't tell them that they don't, and who are sitting at home collecting unemployment, collecting welfare when they're healthy, when they could be doing better. When they could be doing better, whatever the better is that they could be doing, they're not doing it, but they will argue you and I down and tell us to our face that they love their family just as much as you and I. So whatever love is, we can't use the word quantifiable. Love is not quantifiable. Love is as the most subjective, abstract thing in the universe, because we all agree that it's there. It's not quantifiable. What's quantifiable is the actions that a person takes. Hence why I'm recommending that we judge people on their actions more than their claim to love, because we can't quantify their love. Their love is their opinion. It's their view. It's subjective. We can't let ourselves live and die on their subjective view. What we can commit to, what we should commit to, what I recommend we commit to, is something that is quantifiable. What is quantifiable is their actions. Are they doing the best for themselves and then committing to us to do the best in helping us and then sticking to that commitment? That's something that we can quantify. How many days they work, what money they bring to the table, what other skills they bring to the table if they don't bring money. That's quantifiable. That's something we put on the list. That's what your boss does when he evaluates your work. You don't have to be the employee of the month to get your paycheck. You don't have to be employee of the year to keep your job. What you do is quantifiable. And hence, if you bring a value to the company will retain you or will likely to retain you. Imagine if you were waiting on your paycheck the way you do with love. And this is the funniest thing, because I love to use this example, because people never judge anything the way they judge love. Love has a past. You can love me or claim that you love me. I don't know if you do the right things. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But we don't treat our jobs like that. Imagine if our boss told us, hey, don't worry about it. Just trust me. Have faith. I'll pay you. And what if, like love, when he says, hey, I love you. I'll pay you next time. We don't act that way about that. And that's not reasonable in a business aspect. So I'm saying, let's take these business principles. Let's take this thing that we already do, the attitude we have towards business and so on and so forth, and just bring it over to the rest of our life. We do it 8 to 12 hours a day anyway. Let's do the other 12 hours a day at home with our loved ones. And let's build them up in a way that we already do at work, at home. Think about this. A lot of people speak to their spouse in a way that they would never speak to their boss. A lot of people speak to their spouse in a way that they would never speak to their boss.
And there's reason for that. And there's reason for that.
There's many reasons. But
because they get paid, that's why.
But think about this. Imagine if we spoke to our spouse with the same level and restraint the same level of respect and restraint that we speak to our boss. Your boss can fire you at any time. This is not 1930 where you get a job at 18 years old and you keep it until you're 60. You're going to have multiple bosses in this day and age. Yet most people, especially quality professionals, have a level of respect that they never cross with their boss or their employee. Not even the owner of the company, just their supervisor. They come to work and act in a certain way. but they get home and they'll lose their temper, go off the handle at their spouse for making a bad dinner or for not picking up the kids on time or something like that. Imagine if we kept that same level of respect at home, and our spouse is going to be with us more likely. Our spouse will be with us longer than our employer will. Very few people have a longer employment opportunity than they do a marriage. Even marriages on average only last 5 years are still longer than the average job that only lasts about 2 or 3 years. So why do we have more respect for something that's going to...
It's now.
It's less than 2. Thank you, sir. So we know our boss is only going to be around for about 2 years, but we have the highest level of respect and we have the composure that we don't have for our spouse, who on average is going to stay with us for 5 years and who we claim that we're going to stay with forever. Why not take some of that quality level of respect home? Because our spouse is going to commit to us longer than our boss will. Yes, our boss pays us, but our boss isn't committed to us. And our spouse clearly pays us. I mean, there are very few people who get absolutely nothing from their spouse. Our spouse gives us things that are beyond money. They give us things that are more than just a paycheck. And we should respect them accordingly, but we don't. We leave all that respect at work and come home and give our spouse whatever. Of course we're going to get divorced at 50% rate. We don't even have self-respect or respect for our spouse. We give our boss more respect than our spouse. I told my wife from the very beginning, I won't be that guy. I was writing my book, the whole time I knew my wife. But I told my wife, I won't be that guy. And I also won't accept that woman from her. She's not going to respect her boss more than she respects me. She's not going to blow up at me the way she didn't blow up at her boss. She's going to bring that professional woman home because that professional woman is a proven asset. And it just as she could be a proven asset to her boss, who she only spends 8 or 10 hours with, she's damn sure going to be just as proven of an asset to me because I give her more than her boss ever can, ever will. And I'm sure millions of spouses have the exact same situation as I do. They just haven't thought of it that way. Romanticism doesn't teach you to be more respectful to your spouse than you are to your boss. Romanticism leaves out the concept, the obvious numbers that you're going to spend more time at home. No matter how much you work, you're going to spend more time with your spouse and your family than you do with your employer. Your employer doesn't want to pay you overtime. So obviously, at some point, you're going to go home. If you work 10 hours a day, you're still home for 14 daggone hours, right?
Well, in a 24-hour day, 7-day cycle, you only could do so much depending on the work you're doing. And yes, there is sometimes overtime depending on the profession or just the job itself, Dr. Blaque. You get me? And most women, I don't know what's the data on that, and I don't really focus on it, but let's say more than half in percentage, let's say roughly 40% women that work on a job, whether a professional or just a regular job, do overtime. That means that leaves you, if you go in like in the morning, like let's say 8 in the morning, and then you're supposed to leave at 3 or 4, and then the boss will have you stay for like another hour or two. Not sure how long overtime is on a profession. Probably a regular work week, it might be that length or longer. That's going to add in like another 2 hours. You look at, as you get home, your mate, particularly if it's your spouse, your wife, or your girlfriend, etc., comes home, it's going to be tired because she has done nearly half or close to half of a 24-hour cycle. Because it's like 12, 12. So we start 8 and like maybe 4, 5, or 6. That's roughly, if my math is right, that's like roughly 9 to 10 hours, maybe, on a good week, day.
Yeah,
you're
I
exhausted.
was just saying if you work
you're
10 hours
exhausted.
a day, you're going to have.
No.
Yeah. I'm not saying what you do. I'm saying how you approach what you do at home. Even if you work 10 hours, you sleep 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
I'm saying those 4 hours that you're interacting with your spouse should be more respectful to your spouse than the 10 hours you spent with your employer, because you don't spend the whole 10 hours with your boss. You spend the time doing something. Just like you're sleeping at home and you're not talking to your spouse the whole time. When you're at work, you're not staring your boss in the face the whole time. You're doing work to keep your job.
Mm-hmm.
The interaction with your supervisor, your boss, your owner, that interaction is very respectful, and you expect it to be. You hold yourself to that standard. You should at least have that same standard when you come home to your spouse, who gives you more than just a paycheck. who gives you things that a paycheck can't buy.
Yeah, I mean, that's
All of
where
us
it
who
boils
had a
down.
job, we know your boss barely sees you, right? If you're doing a good job, your boss isn't going to be talking to you a lot. The more your boss is talking to you, the less you're doing a good job, right? Right? I mean, let's just be honest.
True.
If you're doing a
true.
good job, your boss is paying you to do that good job. So you're not sitting there going back and forth with your boss. You're sitting there doing the job. And when you're home, you're not sitting there staring your spouse in the face, but the interaction needs to be a level of respect. You need to be the kind of person who's in control of your emotions and able to deal with problems in the same high level of professionalism that you do at work. And I came up with this concept because I was dating before my wife. I was dating this girl when I was first out of the military, before my wife and I started talking. And I realized she always used to tell me about how great she was at work. And I thought to myself, you don't do any of those things here at home with me. You don't. She was very organized. Had all these calendars and dates and sticky notes. But then when we were together, she couldn't remember anything I told her the day before. She couldn't remember to do any of the things that I'd asked, and I had to ask her 4, 5, 6 times. And she'd be very short-tempered. Work was so hard. I don't mean to have a short temper with you, but. And I was thinking, you don't tell your boss that. You don't go into work and say, my kids would give me a hard time. I have a short temper. It's not acceptable. You don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to think about adding this to my book and started to think about adding it to my life. I need a person who understands to bring home that professionalism. And now I'm recommending that to others. Many, many men for many, many thousands of years have been professionals. I'm a preacher's kid. I don't know if any of you are religious, but I'm a preacher's kid. I'm no longer religious, but I'm a child of a religious man. And preachers' children are notorious for being the worst children in the church. Why is that? Because the preacher is focused on the flock, the greater flock at large, and not so focused on his primary flock, his family. And so he doesn't put the care and time and respect and professionalism that he does for the pulpit on his own children. Hence, those children aren't as respectable as his persona of a preacher claims to be. This is a very well-known thing. Anybody who's a very churchy person heard of preachers' kids. And I'm saying that has been in my life my whole life. I've always thought to myself, we should not turn off our professionalism. Why would we ever? What sense does that even make? The same good mornings, hello, the same attentiveness, the same offer to be helpful at work not only should come home, must come home. It must come home. You must be your very best for your spouse and your family first, and then your boss second. Everyone's got it messed up. Excuse me. Most people have it messed up. Most people have it ass backwards. And I recommend for people to change that around because that, I promise you, will increase the success in your marriage. It will improve the environment of success that you need to build. The happiness will be able to stay longer if you take that professional respect home to your spouse and your kids. Try it, I dare you. Try it for 1 month, I dare you. And I'd love to hear anyone say it didn't work for them. Now, it may not be reciprocal. Your partner may not be able to do it for a month, the same month that you're doing it. But I guarantee your children and your spouse will appreciate it and recognize it. If not duplicate it and join you in on it. And it will make a better environment for everyone.
All right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned because you were once a preacher's but in your life, yeah, you were a preacher's son. I've noticed the same scenario happened to Kirk Franklin with his son. How he was,
I'm very disappointed about that story.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed about that story.
I mean, and
I'm disappointed because it shouldn't be public.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of things we should be keeping to ourselves as private when it comes to family. I agree, but I know a few I know a few female content creators have covered, and maybe some men cover it in their own way. And when the difference between men and women when it comes to that scenario is, let's be honest, unless you're a person that lives and his parents to preachers, especially the father, you just don't know at the end of the day. So like I said, when that happened, it was somewhat surprising, but I wouldn't say I was really shocked, to be fair, honest, because when you put more time in trying to, go into the flock to, enormous the masses of the flock, cater to their needs and stuff, you're going to leave out what's happened in your own house, if not careful. You get me? So, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Absolutely, and I resent it. I resent it 100%. It shouldn't be that way. You have to be an example instead of pretending. All these preachers pretending to be examples. Think about it as the metaphor that it comes from. Imagine a shepherd who has a few of his own sheep plus the sheep for the owner of his land. Let's say the prince gave him 500 sheep, but he had his own 5 sheep. So now he has 505 sheep. Imagine a shepherd ignores his 5 personal sheep and only focuses on keeping the prince's 500 sheep. You might think initially that's a good idea, that makes sense. You don't want to upset the prince. But what kind of person would let his sheep get eaten by the wolves that belongs to him? You can't focus more on another person's success more than you focus on your own success, and in this case, your own responsibilities. You can't focus on the prince's sheep.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This can't happen. But I follow the philosophies and the actions most preachers take anyway. Not gonna knock it. It's a business at the end of the day, so you have to flock to the sheep. Prepare. Oh, Dr. Black stepped away. He'll be back momentarily. The call number for today's stream is 712-770-4160. The access code is 917-324-POUND. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 917-324-POUND. Today's stream is titled Chaos Reign Presents Can a Man Adjust to Relationships in the 21st Century? And this is the question that me and my guest, Dr. Black, are going to go into it with his soon-to-be up-and-coming book, And, like I said, this man has been circling heavily throughout the social media apparatus. So, I expect great things from this book. And let's be honest, man. If you're going to operate in this Western world, particularly either America or abroad, you are going to have to figure out how you're going to adjust in this paradigm, this environment, when it comes to relationships. Because, let's be honest, guys, women are making their own money. They're able to dictate their own lives, etc. And the necessity of a man for pretty much everything is not really required in the West. But nonetheless, this is the dilemma we're going to face ourselves if you're a mid-Gen Xer or a millennial and potentially a Gen Z, how you're going to move as a man. And not only applies to the average black man, but this could apply to any man in general, And, when we talk about us as black people, once we catch the flu from other race people in this country, it's a problem, So other relationships from other groups of men, they deal with accordingly. And either women are abide by it or, they just kick rocks. But when it comes to us, we're a little bit more chaotic. So, you back, Dr. Black?
Yes, brother. So you're saying that we're chaotic when we run into problems in our relationship?
I mean, well, with black
men.
people, it's black men and black women. It's not really perfect, but when it's like the old man said it best. We just don't like getting along. When it comes to not relationship, but just in general, when it comes to us as people, men and women. And if you notice, Dr. Black, one thing I've noticed when it comes to our people, besides all the other topics, issues or things people could look through the digital space, the internet, you find a high percentage, and I could be wrong, and people could quote me or do the research itself. One thing, particularly men and women, especially us as people, black men, black women, we focus more on relationships than anything else. And it makes you always put a question mark, say, why is it so much that we focus on getting along or whatever, or trying to get to relationships or getting to the sex part? That's our main focus. So I think there's something that's missing in how we
I have an answer to that.
Okay,
or
go
I
ahead.
have a perspective on that.
Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just
Go ahead.
saying that I would like to respond. So I don't think a lot of people realize this. Many cultures lead many groups of people. Let's say each race has something that they lead in that they're very good at. Um, more than other African Americans lead the world in entertainment. But if you look at anywhere that Africans exist, the Africans of that whatever that country or area is lead that country or area in entertainment. So if you start with African Americans, we tell the world what's fashionable. For example, Gucci, Fendi, many of these
Savannah.
brands have been around for many of those brands have been around for 60 years. Why is it only now that the hip hop community started to buy into it and expose it, is it now globally dominant? It had been in Europe, specifically Gucci and so on, had been in Europe for years, and a few Americans had it, but now hip hop artists got into it, started buying it, started promoting it, and now everyone in the world is dying to get their hands on Gucci because African Americans establish what is popular in entertainment. Music, movies, everything. I mean, whether you like twerking or not, twerking has been around for some people, say, thousands of years, but at least for 40 years. Why is twerking all of a sudden a big deal? When African Americans establish something to be culturally acceptable, it is culturally acceptable. The music, the movies, the style, blah, 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 blah. If you go to Africa, if you look at Nollywood, the Nigerian version of Hollywood, their movies dominate. And wherever their people travel, those movies are always there. Nollywood sells more movies per year than Hollywood does. They don't gross the same amount, but they have more volume. It's clearly in demand. South America, the Caribbean, reggae music is global. Whether you like it or not, every country you go to, there's a reggae community where people listen to that music habitually. That has nothing to do with any other culture. So with that truth that we have to accept, the Africans and African Americans especially establish what is cool, what is popular, then our views are always on display where other views may not be. So we don't get to really know what Japanese people think about dating. Asians in general keep romance as a very secretive or very private thing. They don't talk about it. If you watch an Asian movie, there's rarely a lot of romance. It goes from zero to love and privacy all around. It doesn't make for a deep conversation. But African Americans, because they set the trend, I don't think African Americans want to lead with their sexuality or their romantic views. I think because they are popular, everyone's looking at their example. You see what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I follow you. Okay.
So we don't I don't think you or I personally give a damn about what Kim Kardashian does. The only reason Kim Kardashian is even a topic is because she dates black men, married them and have kids with one of the most famous ones. Her father and everybody else was irrelevant. The Kardashians were all irrelevant until Kim started doing sex tapes and dating black men. Mm-hmm. That's reality because African Americans set this standard for what's entertaining, what's popular. And so that whole family now is making literally billions of dollars off of selling their connection to the African American community and being and what some people consider entertaining. That's not because black people want to throw their sexuality around. That's because everyone seems to, it sells, whether we like it or not. Many people are interested. Many people care. And so we can't let other cultures diminish us or belittle us for the fact that we lead in this area. It's not our fault that you care all about our business. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It's not our fault that you try to copy everything we do. Now, I would agree that we could do better, but I don't think that we have to do better. I don't think we should be belittled for not doing better. We're human beings. We can't be better than every other human being. African Americans, Africans in general, can't be the best humans. We are all affected by the human experience. We should be held to the same standard that other humans are held to. We should be applauded for our successes. We should work on our failures and leave it at that. Europeans use this trick to make us feel guilty for our successes. I feel nothing negative about all the ratchetness, all the sexuality. None of that makes me feel negative. I don't feel any dismay to the African American community because they're leading. They're leading. If you don't like it, don't buy it. I have never watched, and I will probably never watch any of the Kardashians. I can't fathom what's entertaining about that. But I'm happy that they're doing that and people like it and so on. And I must respect the fact that the only reason that they're doing that is because black people said it's okay. Hip hop, if you remember, you and I are from the same generation. You remember the time when hip hop was dead in the water and people said no one listened to this crap before NWA? You know, back when Sugar Hill Gang was hip hop, and they told us, man, this music is going to die. It's a bunch of trash. You young kids are full of crap. You're so out there. Da 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 da. You know what's funny about that? When they said that about hip hop, they said the exact same thing about rock. You know, Chuck Berry, who Elvis stole his music and who the companies, you know, stole his ideas and his songs, he invented rock. A black guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they told him the same thing. This music is crap. It's not going anywhere. Blah, blah, blah. On and on and on. And you can go far back as they were allowed. They said the same thing about jazz before jazz was pop. When African Americans decide that something is good, eventually the rest of the world comes along and accepts it. It is what it is. I'm sure our African brothers and sisters, like you mentioned earlier, set those trends early on. So instead of us, because we may not like a certain version of what African Americans have made pop, because we may not like it, we shouldn't feel negatively about it, or we shouldn't allow anyone to belittle us based on that. We don't have to like everything. I like Burberry, not Gucci, but I'm not knocking Gucci. It doesn't have to be that way. There's no need for me to knock it just because I don't like it. And half the time, it's not even that we like it or don't like it. We just don't prefer it, right? I prefer Burberry over Gucci. That has nothing to do with Gucci. That's Gucci's business. I get to like what I like. Other people get to like what they like. Mm-hmm. But no one can come to me and tell me because I'm black, I should be ashamed of black girls twerking in videos or twerking on Instagram. Why am I ashamed? I'm not twerking. My daughter's not twerking. And I'm happy for every girl who, instead of going to college and getting all her money stolen in the typical traditional way, you know what I'm saying? How colleges are literally stealing people's money generation after generation. If you can go on Instagram or, like you, sir, have a successful YouTube channel and make hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, why am I ashamed? You're an entrepreneur, and I applaud you. You're an entrepreneur in a way that I would never be an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur in a way that I wouldn't recommend my own child to be an entrepreneur, but you are a successful entrepreneur nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at all those. Look at Instagram. How many hundreds of booty models do they have now? And those girls make
I think
money.
they got roughly
I'm
millions
not ashamed
now.
of them.
They got
Come on, brother.
now.
You're probably right. Come on now.
Yeah.
But people try to make me or any of us
fair.
intelligent people, they try to make us feel guilty about it. I don't feel guilty about it. Why am I guilty? It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. More power to them. If they can sleep at night, guess what? Guess what's all the same? Their money's just as green.
I would
right?
say, to be fair, not every woman that has a IG is making bank money like that per se. Now, with my fans only,
of course not.
Depending on how they look and how the market goes, which eventually will be saturated, you could take the opportunity to make a little few bucks here and there, but not every woman is going to be like millionaires overnight. I just want people to be clear.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are not saying that. Absolutely not.
I know. One other thing I do want to say, because it almost slipped me. You said that people are getting financially robbed in colleges. What do you mean by that? You're going to have to explain that.
So you go to so this is very important.
No. What do you mean by?
I study.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this one. I'm not gonna make it long. So I study finance. I like I said, my wife and I we agree on having a high value life. And when one of the greatest benefits I got, I chose the military to pay for my college because I didn't have the money. But as I went through that process, I learned that it was so much better that I didn't have the money. I dodged a bullet. The average person, the two things that make Americans go bankrupt, and this has been going on for years. The two things that Americans go
You mean student loan
the
debt?
two leading causes of bankruptcy, student loan debt is second to health care. Student loan debt and health care, if you have a medical emergency that has a expensive cost, those are the two things that put that put Americans in bankruptcy. You can Google it. It's an ongoing statistic for years. So the colleges
for decades
charge you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long the statistic. I know years for the statistic going back, and maybe decades, but I've only looked at it for the last few years. Less than a decade. I've looked at that statistic. Okay. So colleges charge you full price and guarantee you nothing.
Correct.
So if you bought a car, you're guaranteed that the car is going to work to some extent. The more you pay for it, the newer the car, the higher the expectation you can have. I don't care if you pay $10,000 or $100,000 for your college, your degree, you aren't guaranteed a job. And then you get student loan debt on top of that most people spend at least a decade, if not more, paying after they get there. So you spend your 20s going to college and getting all the student loan debt, and you spend your 30s and sometimes your 40s paying for it. And so you're pushed your opportunity to purchase a home and get into the American dream back 20 whole years over a degree that didn't give you anything in your pocket. Now, some people say, and we all know that people with college degrees do earn more than their peers who don't have a degree. But that is not the point that I'm making. I'm making a point that the college takes your money and gives you virtually nothing in return. That is stealing. If you're going to pay a lot of, because you're paying for knowledge, but you don't even get the key knowledge. You get a variety of knowledge. You get a buffet. You get a buffet of knowledge instead of getting a focused set of knowledge. And even when you finally do get your focused knowledge, you still aren't guaranteed anything. No college says, come to my school, we'll give you a job when you graduate. No college says that. But they will say, like my daughter wanted to go to LSU, out of state, $32,000 a year. For what? Why would a freshman pay $32,000 when if she got a bachelor's degree after 4 years with her $120,000 in debt, she's not going to make much more than $30,000 a year any damn way. What does a person fresh out of college with no experience make?
Depends on the degree,
though. But the average American makes $48,000 to $52,000 a year, depending on your state.
Okay.
But if you have zero experience, that's the average American, right? We tallied everybody in there. But if you just have a degree, no experience, your average income is closer to $30,000 than it is to $50,000. So you just spent $120,000 to get a $30,000 a year job. That's stealing in any kind of way you look at it, and that's what I mean. People should. I recommend the military, because when you serve the military, they pay for your college, and so you got paid to be in the military. You paid that time back with serving, and then you get the GI Bill where you get literal money for your degree versus doing the traditional way where you go to a college, you spend all that time, you study hard, you graduate, and you have zero. What do you have to show but debt? You're in debt. You have less than you did if you didn't go. You literally have less than you did if you didn't go. You might have anywhere between 10, 20, 30, $100,000 debt you owe the bank. Money for something that you didn't even get a return for. You got zero ROI. You got no return on your investment. You got to hope. You got a bad IOU, right? We know cash dollars are a version of an IOU, but you got the worst kind of IOU. You got a I hope IOU, where I hope you get a job now that you spent all your money in our school. So I told my daughter, there is absolutely 0% chance that I'm going to sign my name on your student loan. If you're going to go to college, you're going to earn it through the military, or you're going to get a scholarship. She didn't get the scholarship. That's fine. And now she's headed to the military. So she
went straight to the military. You actually made ultimatum. Either you do this, or I am not going to help facilitate you to be in unnecessary debt as a father.
That's my point. I didn't tell her what to do. I told her.
I know you didn't tell her what to, but you gave it. You lay out the scenario.
I did.
And made her make
drew a line where I
decision.
wouldn't cross. Yeah,
right.
I drew a line where I wouldn't cross. But it was her choice, right? She had the choice to get a scholarship and to still go to college. She either chose not to or she was unable to, which is fine. And so my plan was a backup plan. If you don't succeed in this way, I don't know if that's what you want, but if you don't succeed in this way, then here's a way you can go. She will be able to go to LSU. My daughter's actually leaving for boot camp tomorrow. She will be able to go to LSU, but when she goes to LSU, she won't be paying for it out of pocket, and neither will I. I graduated college. My wife and I graduated college together with zero student loan debt, zero. So we're buying property in our 30s where our peers are paying back student loans. And we all have families. We all care about our families. We all want to take care of our families. We all know that it's better to own a home than rent.
Mm-hmm.
But people who owe student loans,
man.
brother, I got different subjects we could talk about. I'm not only talking about relationships. I'm thankful that you brought up the question.
Well, you know, we might you finance. I'll do this. Paco, let's stop right here.
Speaking.
Paco, because since you are a finance and that's your background, am I right?
No, management is my background. Management, not finance. I don't have an accounting degree. I have a management degree.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, you know, maybe we'll arrange something and we'll talk about maybe management. Next time. Next time.
I gotta wrap up. I gotta wrap up the relationship part, though. I just have to.
Yeah.
Because my daughter's part of my relationship, right?
Yeah, go
I just have to speak on that. I have to say that I don't think it's reasonable for people to spend tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars on college when college doesn't give you a fair return. That's my ultimate point. If you can go to college for free, go. But my daughter is going to get paid in the military, right? Her friends in college aren't getting paid anything. She's getting paid. She's serving her country as many people should, if not everyone. And then she's going to get added bonuses of free college whenever she's ready to leave the military. Or she could even finish her college. So she could double dip. She can go to college while she's in the military, and like some people have started to do in the military these days, she could finish her bachelor's degrees while active duty, and then let them pay for her to get a master's degree after, and the whole time she's in active duty, she's been getting paid a literal income. She'll be buying homes, not a home, homes. She'll be able to take care of her family. Whichever husband she gets, whatever he earns, she'll still be able to take care of that and financially uphold that and be on a healthy level based on her commitment to serve the U.S. military. And I think many people should start considering that more from a financial aspect. It just makes more sense. I mean, why do you want to be 25 with $25,000 in student loan debt? I don't understand. Because you'll be lucky to make $25,000 a year. That's just bad math to me. And I didn't let my daughter make that mistake.
Hold on, Paco. Give me a second.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, we'll talk about it. All right. Well, because I've been on here for a while, I got some, not yet, but I got two more questions, and then we could probably conclude this.
Yeah, for sure.
But one thing I would say, that's excellent. And here's the funny thing on Paco, that hold on. Let me do this. I'm probably going to... One second, guys. I got to close the room now. Hold on. Stay online a second. 1 second. All right, I'm back. Okay. So one thing I would say this, and I'm not sure you're familiar with me and the men that I've talked to, Charles Faulkner and Serena Gray. They have written and scripted a plan of action. Well, it's actually a PDF called the Gray Faulkner Initiative, and it mentions the few things that black women, especially black men, is mostly focused on how they could start in the process of attaining certain powers. And one of them is military, because we, as black people, out of all facilities and institutions, for the last 20 years, most of us were compiled in that arena the most, by 30-something%. And because of certain movements through certain presidential elections like Bush and them, they kind of twinkle it and change it, that it started to cut back a lot of my men that once joined the military, or just, for whatever reason, it cut back for a reason. And that the reason for that is mostly propaganda. Oh, you dropped? Oh, he'll come back.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. I see. All right, good. Propaganda, while a lot of black men are afraid or don't want to serve military for at least 4 years. But the point is this, that as men, because we only focus on men besides women, that you need to be put, if you're not, because most men, either in college or not, we know most men by default don't want to be going to anything and want to owe a whole bunch of debt by default. We try to take the least resistance to say, can I still get the same outcomes without putting myself in so much debt? Because we all know debt is like another form of slavery, and what you lay out makes perfect sense. The only reason why I ask this question, because I want you to lay it out so that the people will have an understanding. I don't preach certain things because when I look at as us people, we're not in a situation financially or any of the categories to be doing any stupid moves right now to put us more in a stranglehold. Especially a country that has not really given what's rightfully due to black people for centuries now.
Very true. Very true.
So we have to move differently, and we have to move strategically and intellectually, move forward. And people are going to take the college route. I'm telling people most likely, if you're not getting a full ride to college, you're going to have to find alternative ways to either attain a certain degree that really matters. And I don't really say career, because career varies. And most when they talk about career, I say, okay, you're going to a career. Are you going to put yourself in debt just to get this so-called career? Because now you're looking for a job. And that's not guaranteed.
It's so true.
So I'm going to end it right there. I'm not going further. But I'll do this. I'll share the PDF that Ms. Gray and Mr. Charles Faulkner wrote out that you should look at. Cause
I very much appreciate that.
All right. But these are my last two questions. And it would depend how well you answer in time and fashion. Don't rush, but answer in your way. This will be it. I've noticed I was listening to certain programs, and one dude was laying out a scenario because he's married with his wife with a few kids, and his wife worked for another man. And his concern that his wife might potentially, step out in the marriage. You get me? And he feels because he works, because he makes a lot of money, because I think he's an engineer. I don't know what field he is, but he makes a good amount of money. He probably makes almost close to 160, maybe 170 a year. And his wife works with kids. So he feels because his wife works and she's not bad looking, but, she can improve because she's not too fat, like I don't know how big she is, that she has potential. She might veer and look at other options. And regardless, dealing with a man that she works with that has a business and makes more money than him, that she might step out in the relationship on him. What suggestions or from your experience or any advice to tell any man if they're faking like that, what concerns or things that they should remedies?
So human beings have insecurities, and they should. It's part of being human. Personal responsibility is going to tell you that you need to address your insecurities prior to and during the relationship. Telling your spouse that they can't work because you're insecure is that's not respectful. Telling your spouse that you are insecure and asking them to discuss with you ways that they can alleviate your insecurities, that's respectful. But telling your spouse, hey, I'm insecure, or I don't like, you're not even admitting that you're insecure at this point. You're just saying, I don't like it. I don't want you to work for that guy. He's got money. I mean, every fighter knows this. Every fighter knows that there's always a better fighter out there. Every athlete knows this. Every competitor knows this. Every model knows that he or she is not going to be the most beautiful, handsome person forever, and someone's going to take their place. The idea that you're going to force your wife to stay home because a person makes more money than you is irrational, because there's no universe in which you'll be the person who makes the most money. You and I are old enough to remember 10 years ago when Bill Gates was the richest man on earth, and now we look 10 years later and Bill Gates is not even the second richest man on earth, because Bezos and people keep moving him as Bezos and the guy from Mexico, the telecommunications giant in Mexico, they keep competing with Bill Gates to be first, second, third. They keep rotating. So does Bill Gates just, throw himself off a bridge because he's not the richest man in the world? It's absurd. When you're at the top, you're competing for the top. You take some days off, you go, but so you can't make a healthy relationship with your wife. You can't make a healthy environment for your spouse if you let your insecurities overtake you and your logic. Critical thinking is going to say, I feel this way. What should my partner feel about it? And then the respect to ask your partner what they feel about it and let them know how you feel. And then you try your very best to be understanding and come to a reasonable, point where you both can compromise. Now, most men don't make enough money for their spouse not to work. And I mean, more than 90% of men don't make enough money for their spouse not to work. And then a lot of men who make enough money have the more money you make, the higher standard of living you have. So even if you make money, now you're at a higher level, and so your wife needs to help to support that higher level. It's irrational to tell your spouse that because their employer makes more than you do, that you can't work. If you're going to be like that, that to me is such a basic thing. If you're going to be like that, you should be single. Because if it's not that excuse, you're going to have another excuse. You're not being reasonable. You're not being rational. You're not thinking well. And if you're going to be that off-keel, then you should be single. That's my advice.
Okay.
Make a healthy environment for your spouse. Then work on yourself. Start with yourself. Go to counseling. Respect your spouse. Go to counseling with your spouse. Because you don't have to have all the answers. It's just like you and I. If we feel something about a certain medication or something, we don't have to be experts in that medication. We can go find the experts and help us get the answers. So when you have an issue, go find the experts, get the answers, and accept when you are going too far. That husband is being an extremist. He took it too far. He can just speak with his wife. What if his wife says, I hate my owner. I hate the owner of the company. I hate the person that you think, whatever, makes more money than you, but I can't stand their guts. I wouldn't give them the time of day. Would that make him feel better? Maybe, but he hasn't talked to her. He just told her something crazy like, I don't want you working for him because I don't know him, you don't know him, but he makes more money than me. That's not how you have an adult conversation. And that's what I'm saying. Let's first work on ourselves. What can we do to fix it? There's a famous saying that says,
I see.
Excuse me. You have a better chance of changing yourself than changing the world. So let's try that. Personal responsibility said, let's change ourselves first, if we can. Then we move on to our spouse. Then we move on to counseling, and that will eventually change our world. Because half the time, we don't really ever change the world. We just change our worldview, or we change the view of the world. And that's often good enough if we really care about our spouse and we really care about our relationship. All relationships are about being selfish, I say in my book, but are you being too selfish? Too many people are too selfish, and that's what ruins the relationship. They don't give their partner a chance to meet them halfway or meet them at a reasonable point. They're so selfish. It has to be all their way or no way. If it's all your way or no way, be by yourself, because no one has to do it all your way. No one has to do it all your way. It's always about both of you, or how many ever. There's two or more people in a relationship. So it's always about you and whoever else you're in a relationship with.
Excellent. And my thinking is this: when I think if a man's making more than roughly close to 10% of the population, and his wife either works by choice or whatever, and if you're thinking that far ahead that she might potentially do that, and I heard one particular man told him he needs to make more money so that way she has to think twice about it. But I'm thinking if you are making a certain amount of money, it's like this. A man has to move with purpose at the end of the day. If you're married to a woman that you trust with 3 kids and you have the inclination that you have that certain insecurity, then by all means, this is me how I think, Dr. Blaque. Some people should not be kept. If she walks out, you tie your hands, you wash your hands, you write papers and send her off. That's how I look at it. I mean, because let's be honest, in relationships, it's work, but also you should be able to communicate effectively. And just a question like that, he asked that alone. I know by default you're not in a relationship where you and her have eye to eye and you're communicating effectively. And this is a weakness we need to improve as a people.
Absolutely. We all have
to. And I stress this and I'm going to stress this more now. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, think about all the people who have communications degrees. Think about all the entities that have to have communications experts in it. Communication is not an African-American problem. It's an American problem, if not a global problem. Human beings are bad at communicating with each other. and we have to do better. Absolutely. If we want to succeed, the successful people either are great communicators or hire great communicators to communicate on their behalf. But the communication happens if you want to succeed. Point blank, period, end of story.
Yeah.
You're 100% right, sir.
Yeah, and that's one thing. And you're right. This is a people thing, but like I said, we don't speak from our lens because we're black people, black men. That this is one of the things that is little talk about in the community about communication effectively. You get me? So, like I said, insecurity is a result of lack of communication. That's how I see it, and that's the conclusion of it. So, me finding a man, asking another man, and he's telling you need up your money and then make her not think. I'm thinking you're not communicating properly with your spouse. You get me? And like I said, every person always wants better. They always might look for something, and I agree with that. But if you and her made this so-called covenant and you're married with kids, then that's an avenue that, like you said earlier in this broadcast, do in the best to your ability to make this environment as comfortable as possible.
Sir.
You got to do it.
But think about this, too.
Sorry, yeah, but I'm trying to.
Let me add it. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying I'm going to add to your point and add to my previous point. The best you can do can be unique. The best you can do can also be unique. No one can make your child that you made. No one. Whether it's your baby mother, your wife, whether you've been married for 50 years or you've been married for 5 days, no one can make the child that you already made. So that means the next guy can't make the child you already made with your wife, even if he tries, even if he gets her pregnant, even if they have a child together. You will always have something unique, be it a child, be it your approach, be it the other things that you've done. I make it very hard. My wife, I think, is particularly attractive. Not everyone obviously thinks she's attractive, but I think she is. Other people absolutely think my wife is as attractive as I think so. I think my wife's very attractive. My wife's also a professional, so she can bring quite a bit to the table, if not a lot. In my opinion, she brings a lot to the table. So clearly other men would be interested in my wife. I have no reason at all to think that my wife has stepped out on me or would step out on me. I have no reason. My wife does a great job of making me feel like she's committed to me 100%. But guess what I do anyway? I work hard to make sure that any guy who's interested in her, who tries to tempt her, who tries to entice her, I make it really hard on him. Because if my wife ever leaves me, which there's a 50% chance that she will, being in the culture that we're in, there's no reason to outside of the statistics to think that, but reality is what it is. If she leaves me, you know what the next guy is going to have to do? He's going to have to somehow erase her memory of our engagement, where I took her to Paris as a surprise for her birthday and asked for her hand in marriage. How do you think the next guy who might ask my wife at a dinner date, which a lot of people do, with a ring and a cup, in a glass of champagne or something, how is he going to look after my wife has already been to Paris at the Eiffel Tower, at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, and had an engagement? How is the next guy gonna get me out of my wife's head? Every time my wife thinks about being engaged for the rest of her life, I will be there, whether we're married or not. And each person has the ability to bring unique and special memories to their partner. If we focus on making this environment where happiness can stay, where happiness can continually come back, we will succeed at it. The problem with our relationships today is that too many people are too selfish. They're too worried about what they're getting and not what they're giving. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that society is selfish and society has failed at these relationships. So it's understandable that people are trying to get theirs. But I recommend, and it's easy for me because my love language is giving, but even if your love language is not giving, I recommend to work on being your best. You don't have to be giving to be your best. Be your best. Give your best. Represent your best constantly. Because when you represent your best constantly, it's hard for people to walk away from you. And it's going to be really hard for them to forget you. I mean, what if my wife starts dating a guy? You still there with me, sir?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So what if my wife starts dating a guy, and whatever reason she gets divorced from me, and he's a relatively regular guy. He's got, a normal job, making, a little more than average. Let's say $70,000 a year. What is my wife going to do with her Porsche? Okay, my wife has a great income. She could pay for herself. What is she going to do when it's time to get a replacement car? Is he really going to get her to forget about me when he tries to replace her Porsche with a brand new Toyota Camry or maybe an Acura? It's not going to be possible to erase what I've done because I work on being my very best, even at the sacrifice of things that I may want for myself, because nothing matters more than being successful in my marriage and to staying with my wife. The next guy can't just give my wife, I don't even know, like some people think about infidelity. Sex with my wife can't replace me. You know what I'm saying? I know that. Whether she tries it or not, she's never had. I have no reason to think that she would. But a guy who may have, a longer penis, that's not necessarily going to replace me because I bring more than sex. I bring more than money. I bring more than companionship. I'm the best version of myself, and I give that to my wife. So even if you're better at a thing than I am, I have 10 things that I'm better at than you are, and she's already my wife. So I have time to work on those 10 things. So I have 10 things with 10,000 experiences, and you're just not starting saying, hey, babe, how's the conversation go? Hey, girl, you're real beautiful. Let me take you out on a date. Well, where are you going to take her that I haven't taken her? You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't even know. I know where I've taken her. She knows where I've taken her. Where are you going to take her? You know what I'm saying? I know the way she likes her food. I know the locations. I know the things she doesn't like. The next guy's going to have to learn all of that just to get started where I was almost a decade ago. And I'm sure that works for other people. I'm sure if more people work on being their best and giving their best to their partner, they would minimize their insecurity because they have tangible, it's written in history, the pictures, the experiences, the dates that the other person can't just replace. So you're going to feel more irreplaceable if you choose to, or you'll be selfish and worry about what you're getting out of the relationship, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's working for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I did have one more question, but, my last question, I don't think is, well, it could be something relevant, but because this is such a very reasonable stream, and I'm very pleased to the answer. And I think we lay out the solutions to how man can operate in relationships now in this new century we're in. And we're only in the first generation / 20 years in the 21st century. So, like I said, more is to come. Like I said, a book like yours, if anybody else is writing something similar or different from what you bring to the table. Wait, somebody has their hand up. I'm gonna take one call and one call only.
Sure. Let's do it.
Hello? Who's
Hello.
this?
Mace.
Okay, Mace, you have a question? Because
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
There is no one that can be how do I put this? Regardless if you're married, being married for what you can give somebody has nothing to do with marriage. Love has something to do with all of it. Regardless of whether you can give them the moon, the stars, and whatever. If you're not giving them the right love, you don't have them. You can be unforgettable just because you gave somebody this, gave them the red carpet. That somebody got a bigger carpet than the red carpet that you gave them. And it don't have to be anything about material things. Is not what makes a marriage. Some people think it is, but it's not. It's the thing that you have to go through together to do and accomplish what you do in life with each other and the kids and bring them along. And then everybody don't have to go use the military in order to not to be owing a fee for going to school and to get a PhD. Because a lot of people that got PhDs, that's just exactly what it is, a PhD. And bragging and self-bragging about what you have and this and that, that had nothing to do with marriage either. It's what you have together within your hearts together and how you met and the things that you did together, not the money, because the money don't matter, because just like you went up there, you can fall back down, because they're like you a rich man and you had to file bankruptcy and then you don't have anything anymore. Should your wife walk out on you because that happened, or should she stay with you? Hello?
Oh, I'm there.
Is that a question
if I
or
may.
that's a statement?
Yes, that's the question. Should she walk out on you? Say, if you had all of these things and that fellow and she can't have that anymore, should she stick with you or should she leave and go find a greener pasture some other place?
So I thank you for your question.
Oh, I have another question for him after you answer that one, and then I'm going to leave.
Oh, okay. To me, your question is too vague to answer. So I would say if you're basing let me just say, if you're basing the only on if they got divorced. No, excuse me. If he went bankrupt, no, your spouse shouldn't leave you just because you went bankrupt. No, I don't think. I don't think anybody suggests that. I'm not suggesting that. So if you have a hard time in life, your spouse shouldn't leave you specifically for a thing like bankruptcy or financial hard times. But also the caveat is, what if you have a reoccurring situation? What if you have a joint business and your spouse was trying to help you to work on that business and you disregarded your spouse's opinion, your spouse's recommendations that now in retrospect were probably right, but you tried to be, a know-it-all and you tried to be dominant over your spouse, then I can't tell your spouse not to leave you over that, because it's not just that you went bankrupt, but you disrespected your spouse. And why should they stick around for your disrespect?
You shouldn't.
So I answered your question.
It's equally yoked, and it's equally everything you do.
I hear you, ma'am, but that's not how everyone thinks. I agree with you.
A wife should be able to give her husband just like a husband should be able to give his wife, shouldn't it?
I agree with you, but everyone doesn't agree with you. Many people traditionally, the traditional concept is that the man is dominant over the woman. The Bible literally says that. I don't believe in the Bible. Really? I don't support the Bible. The Bible says that. The Quran says that. Many books have said that. Many holy books, or I don't even know what it's called. Many books say that. So I mean, it's standard. It's standard.
I'm talking real life, the standards of the way other people live. Besides the ones.
Many people live their life based on those religious books. I have 7 reasons why.
I'm saying material.
I have 7 reasons why people get married. So I want to say something in response to your material. When the book comes out, we'll talk about that, or maybe next time. But I want to say something about your material comment, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
if you don't mind, I'll say something about your material comment. So a lot of people try to make it a false dichotomy as materials or love. And I made the comment earlier. It's a quote that many people have lived without love. None have lived without water. So the material thing might be the water in that quote. But I'm saying to you that you can say that it's not about materials, and that's your business. What if you are and your spouse are what's called Genes? Gene is a religious group that believes in having the least amount of anything. They don't kill anything. They're the ones who created pacifism, and they don't have anything. They don't own homes. They only have one pair of clothes. It's mostly a robe. If you and your spouse are like that, I can't tell you anything about material things, because you've committed a whole life to not having material things, and you may just literally live off of. I'm not saying you, ma'am. I'm just using that as an example of people who live that way. But I'm saying, even if you try to have the least amount of material things, there are things that you need. And love isn't something that you necessarily need.
Material things.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
You can have a house and you can own it. That don't mean you have like material things that you can own your house, which owning a house meaning what? You have equity in your home that you can do things with that most people don't, that they rent. So the equity in your home makes you do a whole lot of things that normal people can't do. You can pay for a college degree with equity in your home. You can either educate your children enough as they're growing up with a 401k when they're first born. And that would pay for their schooling. The military ain't got to be everything for everybody to get what you need to know.
So one of the comments you keep making is everything. Ma'am, if I may, you keep using the term everything or everybody. In philosophy, it teaches us never to use a phrase like everything, and we don't use absolutes. So I never came on the show once and said any absolutes. I don't have absolutes to sell. I'm not selling fish oil. I'm not selling no miracle cures. I'm not suggesting that I know everything. I don't have anything like that. So you don't have to use a phrase everything, because I'm not saying everything. We all agree that there's no one solution to every problem. Of course, material things isn't everything, but you also have to say love isn't everything. There is nothing that's everything.
It's got to be.
No.
Because if love wasn't everything,
well, if that's how you feel, we respectfully disagree. A lot of people are divorced.
Excuse me? That's
We
why I say
respectfully
love is not
disagree.
everything. They divorced because of what? You look at Kim and Kanye.
I
They're
said
divorced.
that love's not everything.
Yes, I'm saying you
Look
look
at Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. They're divorcing.
Just look at them. They're divorcing. They had everything, but material things. Maybe it was something that he was not giving her, or she wasn't giving him that he wanted.
Maybe he's just crazy. Maybe she's just crazy.
Like saying everybody is not into material things to make you feel like if your wife left you, that she couldn't find anybody unforgettable. You was unforgettable. Each person.
No, I guarantee. I know I'm unforgettable. I know I'm unforgettable, and I know why I'm unforgettable. That doesn't mean that she won't try to forget me, but I'm unforgettable.
Really?
It's because of the work that I put in. It's not about material things. It's not about material things. It's about the work that I put in. It's about the thing. It's about my approach to our marriage.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's marriage is different, and it's not happening at all times.
Of course.
Most people.
But I don't think you should. I don't know.
Talk to marriage,
You know about the military.
Excuse me. Now,
I don't know if you know about the military. You said that the military isn't for everyone.
No,
I agree with you. The military.
May, hold on, guys, hold on. We already gone beyond the time limit. May, what's the second question? Because I have to soon conclude this.
My second question is that you don't have to send your children to the military in order for them to get a degree.
But we already know.
GPA. You can educate them while they're little, and they can have a GPA where they can go to school for free, and they don't have to pay anything, and you don't either. And then every woman that has to pay for her schooling doesn't mean that she can't go to work for a company and the company pay it off. You give them 4 years, just like the military give you time to go, and you can get educated that way. You can do it through companies just like you can in the military. Can't you?
No, companies don't pay your whole college degree. Companies pay a portion. Companies do reimbursement for a portion of your degree. I have never seen, and I've worked with many companies, and I've studied many companies. There may be a few companies that will pay for your whole degree. There are very, very few. Mostly you have to do an internship, and you have to work for free when you do that. When you join the military, you're not working for free, and you get the scholarship based on what you've earned from your 4 years or plus of active duty. But no one said everything. You keep saying everything. No one said everything. The military can be for everyone, but it's not everyone. The military could be for most people. There's some people have health reasons. There's some people have other reasons. But for the average person, the military is a great option if you choose, because everyone can't get a scholarship. You left that out. You keep saying the military is not for everyone. You can get a scholarship. Well, everyone can't get a scholarship because only 1 to 5% of the school of the budget goes to scholarships. So what about the other 95% of students? They're not getting all scholarships, right? So they can go to the military if they choose, or maybe not. It's up to them. They might spend the money and get traditional loans and be in student loan debt for 20, 30 years. I don't recommend it, but that's their business. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, I had to stop that because, and I thank you, Mace, for calling, because you're the first woman to call in. I wish more women called in earlier, but we know this is a special broadcast. We're doing it in the morning, so a lot of people might not catch it like that. I'm going to say this and repeat this again. There are many ways to move through life to get the outcomes. You as a human being, man, woman, or a young teenager that's going to be an adult, man, woman, you have to decide and figure out how you're going to survive and thrive in an uncertain world and uncertain economy we're in now in the 21st century. Now, I'm not telling you or give you a template plan, say you must do this, you must do this. No, I'm not advocating that. I'm not a financial consultant. I tell you, say, look into this and try this. This might be something that you could look into. And I might start doing that, Dr. Blaque, because people are not learning or understand what we're saying. And this is not based on deal with college.
Learning, brother. It's not people aren't learning. People like to be adversarial. It's our culture. Look at Facebook. Look at social media. People love to try to be adversarial. People are very comfortable being, attacking another person. It's just our culture. And you and I just have to be ready to accept that and try to be respectful in spite of. That woman came on, kept saying everything, and you and I never even used the word everything, not once, because we know better. We're not saying everything.
Exactly.
And you reiterated that again, and thank you for reiterating that. But she didn't come on to really listen to us. She came on to try to have an adversarial kind of.
She tried to argue.
And she was trying to literally create it, because everything we've said is not really arguable. We're not arguing. We're just sharing our views. And thanks to the caller, but it's part of life. We just have to deal with it. It's the society we live in.
Yeah. But like I said, I agree, Dr. Black. And like I said, I don't mind people who have their opinions and be adversary, but I tell people many times, listen to understand. You get me? If you haven't listened to the whole entire stream, which most majority listeners don't do it because, and I forgot to say this in the beginning of my broadcast, I'm going to start saying this constantly. I'm here to raise your attention span, people, whether you're black, white, etc. Your attention span is less than 5 seconds. That's no good. You're not going to thrive or get any understanding of any information if you have an attention span less than 5 seconds. Your attention span only exceeds more than it should be once you want to be comfortable. You want to be entertained. That's when the attention span gets to all time. But when you listen to information like this, it starts to dwindle. It starts to decrease. And I say, no, that's no good. I tell most people, as you listen to Chaos Reign's voice, and hear me well, I'm here to increase and raise your attention span greater than 5 seconds or 3 seconds, wherever it said the percentage it is for the average human being. And that is the mission I will say, and I will keep reading moving forward on Chaos Reign. So if you have not gotten it, know it now, understand it, get it, got it, good. All right, good. So now, in conclusion, any conclusion or final words you want to say, Dr. Black?
Yes. I'd like to first say thank you, sir, for having me on your show, giving me an ability to speak to your audience. My book is not complete. Mostly the writing is complete, but I'm committed to making the most professional book that I can. And as a person who is not a professional writer, I'm going to make sure that I hire professionals before I present it to the world. The foundation of my book is that I want to suggest changes, which is the topic of your show, for dating in the 21st century. I think that the ideas that we've used for dating, the concepts that we use for dating up to now are outdated, they're obsolete, and I'm making recommendations of changes that have worked for me. The ultimate or the primary recommendation that I make is to use our professionalism. Most people work, maybe not their whole life, but most people at least get a job, if not a career, and they understand basic business principles. They understand, even if they aren't working, they understand what a professional is and how a professional conducts themselves. I recommend that we take some of those basic business principles and overlap them in our romantic life. If we want to have a long-term relationship, we should use some of those business principles to strengthen our romantic relationships so they can last long-term. Right now, we're in a society that has 50% and speeding towards 60% divorce rate. Clearly, in our society, we don't know what it takes to get married. Now, I'm not saying I have some elixir or magic potion to keep people married, but I think a way to start to fixing marriage is to start to get into them for better reasons, to get into them as better people. And so my book is focused on what do you do from the moment you start dating to getting married. What you do after marriage I think is too complicated. But what we can do is set up our marriage better for success the same way we set up a business for success. Before you start a business, you're recommended to get a business plan. And it asks you tons and tons of questions like, what do you offer the market that's not already there? Or how can you compete in the market if you're offering something that's already there? Like if you want to, let's say, do T-shirts. Well, why not do the same thing for dating? Why not do the same thing for getting married? What do you bring to your marriage should be the first question. The first question shouldn't be what you want from a marriage. The first question should be, what would you bring to a marriage? What are you good at? What are you committed to? The second question should be, what kind of person is compatible with what you bring? And you can't find compatibility if you don't know yourself. So the top principle of my book is personal responsibility, or let's say the top solution in my book is personal responsibility. We will have better marriages, better relationships if we are better people, and we can be better people if we use the professionalism that we use at work all the time. Stop turning off your professionalism, keep it on. And I will go on in my book to speak about more scenarios, more concepts, more recommendations, but I think in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. We can be better at marriage. We can give our chance at marriage. It can be better if we be better, if we choose to be better people. And everyone's not going to do it. And so we need to avoid the people who won't do the basic things that I'm recommending in my book before we get married. Lastly, love is not everything. It never was and never will be. For the majority of human history, we weren't even getting married for love. It wasn't until about 400 years ago in the end of the Enlightenment that writers started talking about romanticism, and it became a popular thing. Prior to that, when we had engaged marriages that we had for thousands of years, people weren't getting married for love. So we lasted as a human race all this time without getting married for love. We've tried getting married for love for the last couple hundred years and failed miserably at it. Let's try to consider another path. Doesn't mean eliminate love. It doesn't mean love is useless. In my book, I say love is the seasoning, not the entree. No one goes to a restaurant and just orders seasoning. No one sits at a table and just puts salt and pepper on their plate and nothing else. Seasoning inherently has to be an addition to the entree, the meal itself. Seasoning alone is really more or less relatively useless. It's only good in conjunction with something else. Love is great in conjunction with two healthy people. Love isn't great in conjunction with two very unhealthy people. I was saying to my wife today that we all have seeds. But what if you plant a seed in the desert? If you plant a seed in the desert, you greatly reduce the ability for your seed to grow and turn into a healthy plant. Yes, there are very few plants that grow in the desert, but they're very few and far between. Risk management says don't plant your seed in the desert. Plant it in fertile, lush ground like a jungle. So we should set up our relationships like the jungle, an ideal environment for growth. That's what we need to do. Personal responsibility. Start with being good people that practice healthy habits, and then create an environment where that stays, and then bring a person who seems to be, at least on the surface, seems to be committed to it, and let them commit to an environment with healthy habits. Make this happy environment, and then you can grow your love and grow a strong relationship. That's some of my recommendations. That's my view. That's what I've done in my marriage, and I think other people can do it to have levels of success.
All right, excellent. And my closing statements is this to people that are listening, and I'll say this again. Relations are work. It's a lot of work. So like anything, if you're not well known in business, finance, or etc., which that could be more present to our communities, not just Black community, but just in general. But let's say we want to speak for Black folks, that be one step, in regards looking at how you want to view relationships, which will eventually lead to marriage in this 21st century. And let's be honest, people, marriage is a business. They don't really talk too much about the business side of marriage, that when we look at, we always romanticize because we're trained in society to look at it as romanticized. As you see now, because society has changed so much in the last 50 years since rise of feminism and all this, and de-industrialization, now we're going to technology, you got to look at how you move as a man in relationships as potential. This is going to be your business ally. This is going to be your partner for either a short term or long term. And how you structure your life and what you want out of your partner, either she's down with it or not, you know where it stands. And trust me, women will respect where this relationship is going. And if you being upfront honest while you're into it, I know that she's got better respect, because now you put the opposite in a position where she's going to have to uphold her responsibility and put the pressure on her. You get me? And I'll say this personally, Paco. Yes, sir. This is my view. I expect the Generation Zs are the ones, especially the males, like how we have this 50% or women file divorce at 78%. I see moving forward that I can see a lot of these Gen Zs, because they're more wise now. You could tell by the environment, they're going to be filing divorce more on their opposites, the male side. Because now these boys are going to find something, they want some out of this, the outcomes now. They're not going to walk in like their mothers went through it or their parents would, they're going to want something in return and the outcomes that were beneficial. And if it's not going to facilitate, like you said, this business arrangement, then it's going to terminate. I see that coming. And a lot of women, I'm telling you right now.
And I agree with that.
I tell women right now, be aware it's coming. Me and Paco, we might have it easy. We work with you. Shit, I'll be honest, tell you personally, I work with you. But these kids that are adults now coming in front, they're not going to. And just like Paco,
yes,
child
that's
born in the 2000, which make it, these are the ones that babies from us that are adults in the 2000 era, that the boys especially, they're going to have a different outcome in how you look at relationships. And I'm telling dudes that have this so-called red pill rage, all that stuff, don't worry. Just either understand the environment you're in, make the arrangements, and you're going to have to cut ties, and you might take your loss. I know it's expensive, but yeah, go ahead.
I have to say real quick, I forgot to mention earlier that I'm a feminist, and on my YouTube page, I know that's a touchy word for some people. I'm a feminist. On my YouTube page, I'm the Black Male Feminist, and Dr. Black, the Black Male Feminist, and I speak about feminism, and I know a lot of people accuse feminism of ruining society, and I can understand that absolutely 100% because feminism has given women, suggested to women or push women to take actions, and it's a lot easier when one or multiple parties don't exercise their options. So in the past, our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers didn't exercise their options or didn't have them. Today, you have to work harder. Yes, you absolutely have to work harder as a man today to get a woman. But I don't think that's a failing path. I think, like you just said, Mr. Chaos, if you understand your environment, you'll work just fine. You know what I'm saying? It's like I walk all the time, but when you learn how to drive a car, it's way more dangerous to drive a car. But guess what? If you practice driving a car safely, you'll drive a car safely. You're likely to get into way more accidents in a car than you would walking. But that doesn't mean you don't drive. It's the same way. Just because women are different today than your mother and your grandmother, your great-grandmother, doesn't mean women are worse or that they are not able. You shouldn't deal with them. They just mean that you need to improve your ability to deal with them. And I think my book is going to help people do that if they want. I don't respect men who are just raging on women and saying, all of you are useless. And like, why would, once again, we don't use all or everything or nothing. Why are you doing that? If you were a better man, you have better success. If you found a woman that's compatible with you, you don't need to worry about all women. You don't. There's 4+, almost 5 billion women on the planet. You don't need 5 billion women. You just need the one, or 2 if you want, or 3 if you're polygamous. But you don't need all of them. So these complaints about women to me is short-sighted, because if you were focused on winning, you wouldn't be complaining about all the people who aren't doing what you want. You'd be talking about your successes. That young lady, the caller, accused me of bragging about what I have. Winners, that's what they do. People who succeed talk about their successes. People who are struggling talk about their failures. It doesn't mean that anyone's bragging. It means those who are doing what they should be doing have successes to speak of. And I'm thankful to have one. It's because of my wife I can talk about my success. I don't have a successful marriage on my own. I don't magically just have a successful marriage. I have a successful marriage because my partner and I have a successful marriage. And I'm happy to talk about that if people want to hear it. If you don't want to hear it, hey, respect. I'll keep it to myself.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Dr. Black. Thank you. Yeah, so like I said, I think the future for young black men or men generally move forward is, more than great, but it's high. And like I said, because women are exercising an option, you as man, you have to be discerned and exercise well as well. You know what I'm saying? No one tells you to stay in something that you don't like or deal with any nonsense. That's totally up to you. And let's be honest, a woman's going to respect you once you as a man, you set your standards at a certain way where she has to respect. If not, you cut out the weak. That's how that's how business works. They weed out the weak.
It is.
They say you follow this or you're done. That's it. Thank you, Dr. Black, for coming on as my guest for this special occasion, this special broadcast, this day broadcast. And I'm not sure, guys.
Thank you for adjusting your time. Thank you for adjusting your time just for me. I really appreciate that. I'm sorry to your audience for making you change, but I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I tell people many times, you don't see this most often, but in Chaos Rain Channel, I make the exceptions to the rules, But like always, if you're not following me on Facebook, Eric Rain, I suggest you do. Also, I'm on Twitter at ChaosRain7 and all other social media outlets. I'm everywhere. Trust me that. Thank y'all for listening to today's stream. Until next time, take care and see you later.
One love.
Thank you again for listening to this wonderful and special broadcast. And like always, I'd give thanks to Paco, aka Dr. Blaque, as my special guest to today's subject at hand. And looking forward for the completion of his book, Dealing with Relationships. But like always, comment, subscribe, and like this video. You can now follow me on Facebook at Eric Rain and follow me at Twitter at ChaosRain7. Thank you again. And until next time, Chaos Rain.